Okay, hi, and welcome to the Tuesday, April 2nd meeting of the newly established Brattleboro Selectboard. Has the meeting been properly warned, Gina?
Yes, it has.
Excellent, and we kind of knew that because we've been here since 5:15. We did a committee interviews, and then we did executive session, and now we're here with you this evening. At this moment, we will look at approving the meeting minutes from the March 19th and March 25th meetings. Does anybody want to make a motion for those minutes or have corrections, comments?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Tim to approve the minutes from the March 19th and March 25th meetings. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
So I sign this?
I'm not sure.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
So chair's remarks. I hope that you picked up a sheet when you entered this room with my remarks, and I will also summarize them. This is basically a welcome document. I'm glad that you've come. I'm excited to serve as chair. I'm very well aware of the big shoes that followed me and had the pleasure of working alongside Kate for a few years. And while I will not try to fill those shoes, I feel confident bringing my own shoes forward. As there are often new attendees to select board meetings, particularly in the beginning of the season, I want to let you know a few logistics. Meetings start at 6:15 on the first and third Tuesdays of the month. There's some exceptions to that during budget season in the fall. We're obviously up here on the second floor. The back entrance has a parking lot and an elevator. It is handicap accessible. You must sign in when you come into the room, and the agendas are available up front. We do public participation at the beginning of the meeting, and I'll let you know when that is. Public participation is a time to speak about things that are not on the agenda. No action can be taken. We can't engage in robust conversation with you. It's a time to bring things forward, but if you want actionable, full, robust discussion, you need to speak with Jan Anderson and try and get your item on a future agenda. Comments need to stay around 2 minutes. We have interpreters who need to be home by 10 o'clock at night, and we always have full and lengthy agendas. And most important to me, there will be absolutely no derogatory, degrading, threatening, or inappropriate language tolerated during these meetings. These meetings are publicly televised. Children watch these meetings, and I'd like it to stay that way. This is a civil room, and any violation of that will carry the consequence of being asked to leave the meeting. So I'm hoping that we can all enjoy this meeting space together and provide our watchers with a healthy snapshot of town democratic processes. And that concludes my comments. Peter, do you have any manager's comments?
Yes. I wanted to announce the spring leaf pickup. People look forward to finding out in the fall and in the spring when we're going to come around as the yards get cleaned up. And because it's town-wide and only on 2 occasions, it's important for folks to target either April 19th or May 3rd. These are Fridays because we do the whole town in one day. So it's the day when we're not picking up garbage or recycling on any of the routes. So Friday, April 19th, and Friday, May 3rd will be the dates of the pickup this spring. We were asked whether the standard leaf collection bags are required for when people set materials out. The answer to that is yes, and the reason why is that specifically we were asked about now that the grocery stores are using paper again after the conversion from the implementation of the plastic bag ban, would it be okay for somebody to put smaller quantities of materials into numerous of the grocery paper bags? The answer is those aren't made for that purpose, and especially if it happened to be a rainy day or if there were sticks in addition to leaves and that sort of thing, those are bags that are going to fall apart very easily, and it's just going to turn into a mess. And so we need to require that people put the yard wastes out in the oversized paper bags that are made for that purpose, that are more durable, can stand up to the weather and the sticks. So,
Thanks for being able to answer that. Now, select board comments and committee reports. Liz, you have something you'd like to report on?
Yeah, there's another minutes that needs to be approved.
Okay, what else
from
do
the
we have for minutes?
reorganization meeting.
It was, the motion included
Oh, it was for both?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, very good. I'll
Thank
send that
you.
too.
Are there other select board comments or committee reports?
I think I'd like to just take the opportunity to welcome our 2 new members, conveniently placed together over there. So, and it's
kids.
just exciting, whole new year. Anyway,
Look how excited everyone
Tim.
is.
that was very good. Yeah, and I should say, just for the record, that it looks like David has another meeting that he's attending, and that's why he's not here.
Yep.
But, he was here for interviews and executive session just a little while ago.
There's a pretty important school board meeting scheduled for this evening. Not that we're not also amazing and important, but I think this one may carry a little more gravity this time. Daniel?
I guess I'd like to make a select board member comment. On Sunday, it was Trans Day of Visibility, and folks over at Green Mountain Crossroads invited a number of community members to speak out about that. And I just kind of want to make the point that that day happened, it was a beautiful thing, and that trans people are welcome here in Brattleboro.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. Nice. Nicely done. Anybody else from this table have anything else? Okay. Then, as referenced in my chair's notes, this is the time for public participation. I will remind us that we are discussing items that are not on tonight's agenda. Is there anybody who would like to bring forth an item? I see Ricky. Ricky knows the drill already, but I'm going to repeat it just for people who don't. When you're making a comment, please step forward to the mic, which amplifies you on the TV, and introduce yourself.
I'm Ricky Rosati, and I am interviewing for a committee position. And the 3 topics I wanted to ask about, and if not receive enough information to answer, then to please be considered to be put on a future agenda to be addressed. And one concern is that now that panhandling has been acknowledged as legal, it's been decriminalized, I'm curious if there is any knowledge of the police being undercover as homeless people on the street. Or not just homeless, but as actors. Are they undercover? Are they occupying the streets in that way as part of a surveillance state?
Okay, and what was your second question?
The next question is, I have been asking for a couple of months now and trying to understand what the interest rates are of the accounts which, for the public funds trustees, have been deposited with Edwards Jones instead of the Brattleboro Savings and Loans, where the rest of the municipal funds are.
Okay. Yeah, I remember you bringing that up.
I'm concerned, or have a question about why a private bank is being used instead of our community bank as well. That hasn't been explained to me.
Okay. And what was you said you had 3, right?
Yeah, my last question is, because of the statute for making statute changes, it requires such a large number of resident signatures. If instead of, well, not just instead, but in addition to how people are already conducting that via Facebook and independent petition websites, if the municipal website would include a catalog for online petitions for people to sign to create more awareness and make that be more convenient and efficient.
Excellent. All right, we are taking notes on those, and we'll get back to you with answers on all of those things, none of which we're going to have at this moment, but Peter is writing this down. And
Oh, and one more note is that are there any repercussions to the disputes of how the moderator at representative town meeting processed the forum? Are there any repercussions to complaints against him?
Not that I'm aware of.
That may be addressed later today in the agenda under, there's kind of like a decorum here. Maybe we could talk more about it then.
Okay, let's
Okay.
see if it's germane then, and otherwise we'll get you answers. Thank you, Ricky. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak on anything that is not on today's agenda? Did you have your hand earlier? No? Okay, seeing none, then we are going to close the public participation portion of this, and I will entertain a motion to convene as liquor commissioners. From somebody?
I make a motion to convene as liquor commissioners.
Very good. Is there, well, I guess we don't need a second. Okay, so we're convened. See, I came from a bigger board, so sometimes I forget that we don't
And the
need
vote
Usually we
is,
vote.
But all those in favor?
Aye.
Whew, okay, that was challenging. Okay, so today we are looking at a festival permit for Four Seasons Media for the Brattleboro Brewers Festival, and we have Kelly Corbeil here with us today. Kelly, do you want to come up to the table and? Okay.
Hi, Kelly.
Even though I sort of introduced you, if you would introduce yourself for the viewing public.
Sure. So I'm Kelly Corbeil from Four Seasons Media, Inc. and the Brattleboro Brewers Festival.
Very good. And can you talk a little bit about the event that you are planning for today?
So this would be our 8th year of the Brattleboro Brewers Festival in Brattleboro. Just to explain it, it's a place where people can come and sample craft beers and ciders to kind of see what they like, what they don't. So then when they go shopping, later on, they'll know the ones that they might want to buy. Instead of having to buy it all at once, it's a good place to go and just sample a lot of different things. The event is also very local in the aspects of we buy our t-shirts locally, all our food is bought locally, all our marketing materials, all our rentals for porta potties, for tents, for fencing, everything we do local to give back to this community. We don't go outside of it. We also, the other intention of the Brewfest is to bring people into this town to fill the hotels, to go out to dinner, to just experience our town in general. And we think this is a good opportunity to get some outside people in to see it. We also feel it's really fun for us in our own town. It's a nice, fun event to go to. And just to explain the event, again, we have up to 100 choices of craft beer and ciders that people can choose from. We have local breweries there, like the Whetstone and Hermit Thrush, of course. And also a lot of Vermont favorites. Like this year, we'll have the Alchemist again. We have Lawson's Finest, which, they won the award a couple years ago, and they're back again. And so quite a few Vermont, but we also go some in New Hampshire, some in Mass. We really try to keep it within our neighborhood kind of area. We also this year are going to have a wine option, which we've never done before. We're doing that only because a lot of people have asked us for that. So we're going to only have one vendor, and we're just to appease some of the people that want to have that there. We've decided to take that on this year and see how it goes. We also have local food vendors there. So Anon's Thai truck will be there. The Whetstone Station will be there with their smashed burgers. Gougers is there with a whole barbecue. A lot of choices there. It's always a fundraiser too, partial fundraiser, and this year we are helping the Little League to buy bleachers. So Chief Emery and his Little League committee will be there selling their hot dogs. So those funds will go there. Also, we do a keg toss, and all the funds, the proceeds of that also will go to the Little League. So that's kind of fun too. We also have music, and we did a local trio this year, which is Social Medication, which is a band a lot of local people know. And so it's a rock band. They play like Stevie Ray Vaughan, Allman Brothers, some of their own stuff. So It should be a pretty good vibe happening there. And where it's at is at the Famolari Fields, where it's been for the last 6 years. And thank you to the Famolaris, by the way. They've been great to me. And you can park at the high school, and we have shuttle buses to bring people up there. And it's general admission, 12:30 to 4:30. And there's a VIP option where you can come in at 11:30 this year. And that's
Great.
it. That's what the
Thank you for
festival
that.
is.
And it looks like on the administrative side, we have already met, or Ms. Corville has met with the police, fire, public works department, and will continue to work with them in order to comply with life safety codes for the best well-being of all of the participants and citizens. All of the applications, authorizations, documentations are attached.
Yep. We recommend approval.
Excellent. Does anybody on the board have questions?
I do.
Yes.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi.
Can you tell me how many people you expect?
We sell up to 1,000 tickets. There probably will be, I would imagine, 1,000 people or more there, unless, you never know. I mean, there's no guarantee on that. So,
Would it be possible for you to share with us how you marketed this event?
how do I market it? I use WTSA radio. I use 99.5 The Beast, The Reformer, The Commons, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Those are Brattleboro Brewers festivals, plus all those are from the radio stations. I do some advertising in the Valley Advocate. That's kind of, I think, yeah. I mean, there might be some other stuff, but that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Thanks very much.
Yes.
Anybody else on the board have questions for Ms. Corville?
I went last year for research purposes.
What'd you think?
And we had a blast. I actually had some family visiting, so I've got my tickets already.
Good.
Pretty
That's a fun
exciting.
time.
It is a fun time.
It really is.
And it's pretty mellow, and
Yep.
a lot of even families show
Yep.
up.
Okay.
That's all
Are
I
there
got.
questions or comments from the public for Ms. Corville regarding the Brattleboro Brew Festival event on May 25th? All right. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion, which can be found on our sheets that look like this
Oh, yeah.
in
Oh,
bold
Thanks.
print.
Oh, that's where you find it.
The administrative.
How do we magic up these motions?
In the administrative report.
I'll make a motion if
I
no one
think
else.
this time might be good, and then we'll.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve a festival permit for Four Seasons Media, Inc. for the Brattleboro Brewers Festival to be held at 40 University Way on Saturday, May 25th, 2019, from 11:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.
Great. We have a motion to approve a festival permit for Four Seasons Media for the Brattleboro Brew Fest at 40 University Way, Saturday, May 25th, 11:30 to 4:30. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thanks, Ms.
Thank you.
Corville. I would entertain a motion to adjourn as liquor commissioners.
I make a motion to adjourn as liquor commissioners.
Excellent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful. Aye as well. We all are in unison there. All right. I would now look for a motion to convene as water and sewer commissioners.
Oh, I can do this one. I move that we convene as Water and Sewer Commissioners.
Thank you, Daniel. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are convened as water and sewer commissioners, and our first order of business is an ordinance amendment and a first reading, Chapter 18, and this is regarding maintaining current water and sewer rates, and at this point, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Elwell.
Thank you. During the prior select board's tenure, we had a night when we did a lot of utility fund business, and one of the items at that time was to update you about utility fund finances. And we asked the board at that time to allow a year when there's no rate increase for water or for sewer, in order to, we will need to have some additional increases in the future because we have some additional capital needs we need to address. The largest one is going to be the replacement or reconstruction of the water treatment plant up at Pleasant Valley. And so while we're still scoping those, we think that it's appropriate to take a year off from rate increases. We've had the last several years some that were fairly substantial, especially on the sewer side, in order to begin paying back the bonds on the sewer system upgrade that was completed back in about 2013 and 14. What's before you is the ordinance for first reading that implements what you tentatively approved that night, which is that we would indeed take a year off from rate increases. There'll be some pretty intense work we do together later in the year, both around the financial projections related to that capital work and how that relates to the overall financial condition of the utility fund and what rate increases for the future might need to look like, and some proposed changes in the structure of the utility rate ordinance. So we'll work through all of that together in the fall months, getting prepared for you to take action about this time next year regarding the future rates. But tonight's action will be quite straightforward and simple, which is just to give your preliminary approval. We'll bring it back for second reading and final adoption 2 weeks from tonight to maintain the current rates as the rates that will be in place for 2019-2020.
At this time, do I need to read this out loud?
You do not need to do that. No.
That's great. Good
You
news.
can have any discussion you'd like to have. You can ask for the public to provide input, and then just agree that you're going to put it on. You don't even need to vote on it tonight. It would just be to agree to put it on for second reading next time.
Great. Is there anybody on the board? Thank you for that, Peter. Is there anybody on the board who would like to have a discussion around maintaining our current water and sewer rates? Which is a little tricky because we've been discussing it for a year, but you've been discussing it for, I don't know, 2 minutes.
Well,
So if you have questions or anything you want to ask.
We've been briefed on this matter.
Excellent. Okay.
I'll just say I think it's a great thing to hold the rates as they are. As anyone who pays their water and sewer bill knows, that's all part of the big mix of what's expensive about living in any town. So it's all part of that discussion that I'm sure we'll have more spirited discussions when we talk about possible increases later in the year.
Yes, that does sound likely. Is there anybody in the public that would like to have any conversation around maintenance of our current water and sewer rates?
Could I just
Yes,
make a comment?
please do,
The
Jan.
only thing that would change in the ordinance, the only amendment is going to be the language that says, the sewer rates contained in sections 18-137A through C as effective for July 2019 shall be continued in full force and effect until June 30, 2020.
Great.
That is the only change to the ordinance.
Thank you
In
very
two
much.
places.
Thanks for that clarification.
You're welcome.
All right. So there's no action required.
Correct.
Looks like we think it's a good idea, so
We'll bring it on for second reading next time.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next item under being water and sewer commissioners is the Main Street Water Main Replacement Project. We need an update on that.
So Steve Baird is here and can provide you information about the implementation of this. I am asking you to please advise me which way you would like to proceed to expedite the bid award. We are moving as quickly as we can to make sure that this work gets completed before the strolling of the heifers. And in order to do that, waiting till 2 weeks from tonight to make a bid award would actually lose a week on the potential schedule. So we'd like for you to agree that either you'll hold a special meeting a week from tonight, just for the purpose of coming together for a few minutes to make a bid award, or that you delegate to me the authority to award this bid and come to you on April 16th for ratification of the bid award to get this project moving. Steve's here to talk about the project. And
Thanks, Steve.
Okay.
how we'll get it implemented.
Sure.
Great.
So going back to what Peter just said, really on March 5th, the select board reviewed the information that we supplied on the water main break itself that happened in February. And just briefly, there was a break in a valve that went to 165 Main Street. And there was 160,000 gallons of water loss at that, and it filled the cellar of the bike shop. That valve, in fact, was a private valve that's owned by the bike shop or that building, whoever owns the building. But in the process of shutting down that water main, We also had some problems with our own valves, and one of the valves, which was installed in 1880 to 1890, part of the original water system, actually failed. So that it took us a lot longer than we wanted to isolate this main. And so given that we've had this, kind of a catastrophic event downtown, and it has a huge impact on the downtown area, we came to the board in March to request that we accelerate and consider replacing approximately 300 feet of water main in the downtown area, in the area over this break. And the board said, yes, let's move ahead. We hired engineer Dufresne, and they have completed a final design and the big bid documents. And we put we put the project out to bid, and it's due back on Thursday. So the reason we're here tonight is we'd like to move this process forward and hopefully give the town manager the authority to accept the bid, and we come back and ratify it later with the board if needed. And this gets the project done, and we can get it completed before the strolling of the heifers, which is a huge event in downtown. So we're recommending to do this project versus having a problem during an event, really. We know it's going to be an inconvenience. There'll be flaggers, and some of the parking will be taken away, and we'll do a big splash with the media to make sure that people understand. But one of the advantages is the project's really condensed. It's really aggressive, and we're going to try to get this thing done in a real quick manner, so it has less an impact in the downtown area. So people should still come downtown. It's not going to be blocked off. The roads will be open. We'll just go at a slower pace. We'll probably have to put the lights on flash in some of the areas, and we'll have some traffic control down there to assist.
Great, thank you.
So that's it in a nutshell.
Are there members of the board who have questions for Steve regarding this project?
Kind of curious about how long you imagine it might take.
The contract, we've actually specified that it needs to be done by May 17th. So just a few weeks is what we're talking. And the contract calls for putting the new water service in, tying over the existing sprinkler lines and water service lines to the buildings. The good news is the section of pipe that we're doing only accommodates water services on the easterly side of Main Street. So that's a big benefit because the Brooks House is fed by High Street, and some of the other buildings are fed through Harmony Lot or the other side of the work. So that actually helps us in this small section that we're doing.
Other questions from the board for Steve?
Can you remind me did we discuss cost estimate at all during our last meeting?
I don't recall whether we did or not. Steve, do you have a estimate from Dufresne?
The estimate for the project?
Yes.
We do not. I think it's going to come in around 150,000, somewhere in that range. We use a unit cost to determine for a particular size main, and because this area is very condensed, traffic control is going to cost quite a bit of money. The unit cost would be about 100, so I'm suspecting that it's going to be quite a bit more because of the traffic control and the number of services in this small section of 300-foot pipe. But there are funds in the utilities, to cover the cost of this for water main replacement. So.
Thank you. Other board comments or questions? Are there members of the public who would like to ask a question? Hello. Come up, state your name and where you're from, and.
Tony, is this on?
Yep, it only amplifies. It only helps the TV.
Okay. Tony Duncan, and I'm from Brattleboro Kipling Road. I'm just wondering can you give an idea of what the inconveniences are going to be, or what what the new construction or fixing it is going to involve in terms of how it'll affect consumers and residents?
So the area that we'll be working would be from High Street south, approximately 300 feet. So the most difficult area is going to be right at the intersection itself, but it's going to be right next to the curbing on the east side. And the east side is towards the river. So that goes down, again, 300 feet, and namely on the northbound lane. In fact, the right-hand side of the northbound lane. The existing water main is between center line and the parking spaces. So therefore, we'll do most of our work on that easterly side. And then we'll remove some of the parking on both sides so that traffic, we can have two-way traffic, and also the vehicles, trucks and such can make their turning radiuses from High Street onto Main. So I suspect that the best way to efficiently do this is to have the lights on flash at High Street and Elliott. And then we'll look at the model of the rest of the lights, because if they're not all in sync, it may make some sense to put them all on flash, but we'll look at that. It'd be more desirable, at least at Lower Main Street, to have that light operating for pedestrian traffic. But we're gonna have to see what we can do with that.
So what you're talking about is digging up the road or the sidewalk, or?
The road actually has to be dug up. The existing water main is about, well, we've dug it up a few times, and it's about maybe 5 feet deep. And so the new main will go parallel to that main. You have to dig up the street and put it right next to the existing water main, the new main. And then you have to tie the services over. There's existing 6-inch sprinkler lines, and also there's domestic lines that are inch and a half. Those will have to be tapped onto the new main and tied over. Then the old main will be dug up and disconnected and abandoned.
Okay, so what, in terms of like the stores, I mean, people will still be able to get them, it's just gonna be, like, you'll have little wooden things to cross over?
No, the sidewalks will be open, and there may be cases where we might have to route people around.
Okay.
But generally, most of the work's gonna happen in the street. But there might be a time where we have to get into the sidewalk a little further to tie over service, at which time we'd make arrangements.
Feel good, Tony? Okay. Other comments or questions from the public? Ricky? Introduce yourself, please.
I am Ricky Rosati, and I would motion that during the following special meeting concerning this, that there also be on the agenda a ban for using animals for public entertainment, that there would be cows and chickens brought to this event is very inhumane, and we shouldn't have to depend on PETA protesting in order to be responsible.
Okay, so that's going to be a really great example of something that's not germane to this conversation, but could be talked about with Jan for a future agenda item.
We disagree because
We might disagree, but that's the rule of this
I understand germane as
meeting.
being abutting.
I read your email and I understand it. In this case, we're going to use the Robert's Rules of Order, which govern us as a governing body, and I'm going to say that I
You
want
can
to
say
keep...
it's unrelevant
Ricky,
and it's linguistically
Ricky.
correct. Yes, Brandy.
please, do you have questions for Steve about the water main?
Is the bid being reviewed by the Energy Committee?
Good question.
No.
Why not?
There isn't
don't
any
really know
aspect
where that
of
applies.
the water pipes that has a impact on energy consumption.
Okay.
Water is an energy source.
Do you have a second question for Steve?
I would ask that the Energy Committee do review the bid to make it the most efficient bid possible and review it. And when the sidewalks are being renovated, is there any statute for the pipes to be checked every time the sidewalk pavement is being renovated? To prevent crises like this that happen.
There are regulations regarding the pipes when the pipes are installed, and then there's other regulations that apply to the water that we flow through the pipes every day. So there's a tremendous amount of testing that's done by the town utility department regarding the water, and there are some special requirements related to when new pipe is being placed, and so all of that will be followed in the project.
My question is specifically, is there inspection of pipes every time the sidewalk is replaced?
There's a review of all the utilities anytime we do any project. And then there's a decision made whether a pipe will be upgraded or whether it may not.
Perfect.
Generally, if there's a case and that we'll try, that we know, like say for instance, there's a wastewater line that has some problems, that would be excavated and renewed before we pave a road.
Is there an expiration of renewal? an expiration for renewal?
No.
Why is there not an expiration date of pipes for renewal to prevent crises from 100, 200-year-old pipes being broken?
I think that's a question we're going to have to get back to you on.
So there
We're
will
gonna
be
need to look at
another
policy.
agenda item.
No, I think that's something we can get back to you on just administratively.
And so,
So we're going to bring this to a close.
no, I have I have a couple more questions. And
I
that
think-
being that when the sidewalk is replaced after the pipes are inspected, will there be water bars to allow for rain flow and an increase of the tree sanctuary space around the roots so that the trees aren't suffocating?
Actually, the current design, which was designed when we did the Main Street project, has a brick element to the side, which is to accommodate stormwater runoff and filter that towards trees, and also to prevent peak runoff of stormwater. So that's already in the design. We're just going to replace what was destroyed when we had the water main break.
With what is being replaced, will there be more space to accommodate more exposed dirt around the tree bases so that they can get more sunlight too at their roots at the base of the trunk?
So that's going to be actually more of a town planning question, that it is going to be a question directly related to these kind of individual projects. And that's, once again,
That would be
something that
part
we
of
can
the
get back to
bid,
you on.
the bid design.
Because
There's
it's more
no
of a,
tree-
that's
we're
more
not
of a
changing
systemic
trees.
question of how we're treating all of our trees downtown. And so it would not be part of this specific bid for this 300 feet of work doing downtown.
I would like it to apply to this.
It's not going to.
Why?
Because that's not what's going to happen in the amount of time. There's not enough time to have an appropriate conversation about the systemic life of all of our downtown trees, which
I'm talking
definitely
about the specific
could
section.
use. No.
Thanks, Ricky.
Are there further comments or questions from the public regarding the water main replacement on Main Street for Steve? Okay, do you require anything from us?
You don't need to take an action.
Oh.
I'd like to, the action you'll take is either going to happen at a special meeting or 2 weeks from tonight when you would ratify the decision that I'll make in the meantime. We'll be happy to proceed in whichever way the board prefers.
And are we all seeing the 2 bullet points in the memo that says, you know, we have the right at this very second to tell Peter to move forward and delegate him authority or choose a special meeting? Does anybody feel a certain way?
Yeah,
I
I'm
feel we should give Peter the authority.
I do too.
very comfortable with that.
Okay?
I think you
That's
have
how
my
we'll proceed.
direction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I would entertain a motion to adjourn as Water and Sewer Commissioners, and thank you very much, Steve.
So moved.
Excellent. All in favor?
That's the cheat. You can just say so moved.
Yes.
It is a good sheet, and it's one I use faithfully for 2 years at least. Okay, we are now moving the meeting into new business.
And was there a
And
vote on that last motion?
There was, yes.
4-0?
4-0.
Okay, thank you.
Our first order of new business is a VDCP application for Brattleboro Housing Authority's Red Clover Commons, and it's public hearing and resolution.
Patrick will introduce it, and we have
Patrick?
Chris Hart here from Brattleboro Housing Partnerships.
Wonderful. Chris, you're welcome to come to the table, even though that feels kind of spread apart here. But-
So, good evening.
Thanks, Bob.
Of course, we're here this evening to seek authorization to submit a grant application. But I thought because we've got a new board that's come together, I might take a minute and sort of discuss this request in the broader context of the town's ongoing efforts to promote affordable housing and economic development. The funds that we're going to be seeking for this particular project began their life as part of the federal budget in the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And those funds are provided for appropriate projects, and they're what's called Community Development Block Grant dollars. In Vermont, Community Development Block Grant dollars are administered by a state department called the Vermont Community Development Program. One of the key characteristics, in fact, one of the defining characteristics of this program is that municipalities are the only eligible applicants. And this is kind of an important and key feature because it's one way in which the federal government can ensure that their investment in the local community meets both state and local priorities. For the state's part, they have identified their priorities and in fact codified them in state statute. And that is that CDBG funds in Vermont need to be used for one of a couple of purposes. Either for affordable housing for low to moderate income households, for economic development projects where there is a direct job creation as part of the benefit. And there are two sort of minor reasons that don't get a lot of, don't represent a significant portion of CDBG work in the state of Vermont. That being the elimination of slums and blight, which is a very rare application, or an urgent need in a community to address an imminent threat to public safety. Those two are eligible, but they just represent a very small fraction of the CDBG dollars that are spent in Vermont each year. The final decision about meeting local priorities is, of course, held here at a public hearing to discuss a particular application. And so that's why we're here tonight. One final note about Brattleboro's participation in the Community Development Block Grant Program in Vermont. In the last 10 years, in fact, since 2009, Brattleboro has received $5,541,768 in CDBG funding for projects that are majority affordable housing or economic development. And it's just important, I think, to remember that those dollars, in fact, leverage literally tens of millions of outside investment dollars in Brattleboro. So this is an important tool in your toolbox. Getting back to the here and the now, the board is asked to conduct a public hearing and to consider authorization of a grant application for $350,000 for Brattleboro Housing Partnership in support of their project, which is Red Clover Commons 2. And Chris Hart's here. She's far more knowledgeable about the project than I, and I'll let her speak to it.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, thank you. So Red Clover Commons 2 is going to be on the same lot as Red Clover Commons. If you look in the back, there's a surface parking lot. That's not used a lot. And we've had pretty good discussions with the Planning Commission and the town planner and zoning administrator, and have decided for a variety of reasons that we can put a very nice 3-story building on that lot, have all the parking take place in the underground garage at Red Clover. We will have 18 units of housing. This will complete the relocation of residents from Melrose and will enable us to dispose of that property as residential housing, which is very near and dear to my heart. So the building is a total of 18,000 square feet. It's about a little over 6,000 per floor. It's architecturally very similar to the building that's there, so it'll fit in. Same architects are doing it. All the community activities will be done in the big building, and we're working now. We have some plans. We're working now on good pedestrian access between this building and the main building. We've got some refinements there, but I think we're getting there. So it'll be a nice, I think it'll be like a little cottage at the end of the property. It will not affect the existing surface stormwater system, which is very critical in that area. It will have its own heating and air conditioning system. We originally thought we might be able to connect the two buildings. We can't. And I think that's about it. So the community development funds are significant in two ways. One, they are just a nice amount of money towards what will be a $5.5 million building project. And the other is that they indicate that the town supports the project. And I think, that's really great. We've been working with the town since Tropical Storm Irene to discontinue Melrose, and this would finally make that happen. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Chris. And for those who might not be aware of where the location is, it is up on Canal Street, south on 5, next to Walgreens.
Yes, right next door to the corner of
not-
Happy and Healthy.
Yeah, it's not on Canal Street, but that's like me drawing you a map in my mind. Okay, great.
Plug.
And next door to pizza.
That's great.
Yeah, great pizza.
And great veggie sandwiches. Are there questions or comments regarding this project, this grant for Chris from the board?
I only have an embarrassed comment. I didn't realize you had an underground garage
We do, yes.
currently.
That's weird.
Yes.
I didn't know that
Red,
either.
Red Clover Commons has parking underneath it.
And so that
Weird.
can accommodate any new needs.
Additional, yes,
Yeah.
it's only a little over half full right now.
I'm just curious, how common is it for the residents to own automobiles?
That's why it's only about
Yeah,
halfway full.
okay.
Yeah, this is elderly and non-elderly disabled housing, and the zoning ordinance only calls for half a space per apartment.
Okay.
And that's actually a lot for
Okay.
these properties.
And
so,
so that accommodates visitors, no problem
Yes.
now?
Great.
yes, we're very confident that the existing parking can accommodate visitors and the folks that have cars in the new building.
Great, thank you.
Well, I thought of a question.
Sure, of course.
Is it on the bus route, or is there senior bus service?
Yeah, good question. There are 2 bus lines that go by this. And what we found is that though 50 of the people that moved into Red Clover Commons were coming from Melrose, and everybody had the impression that they walked a lot at Melrose, they walk about 5 times as much here because it's so close to all the services. And the light is, the timing of the light is such that elderly folks can get across the walk signal.
Good.
So they walk a lot. And some people have said, I don't need my car anymore. I can walk everywhere. And to stores, they walk down to the hospital to their physician visits. And they love that they're right near the high school, so they can walk to sports events and things like that. So, but there are 2 bus lines that go by.
Thank you.
Good view of the parade, too.
Oh yeah, very good. Yeah.
Well, certain units.
Yeah.
I see that one of the sources of money for this budget was Efficiency Vermont, and I was kind of curious about, as this is a new build property, how it was going to be heated.
I think what we're talking about are using mini split heat pumps for all of the heating and cooling.
Great.
It will be an Energy Star rated building. When you use state funds, you really have to build to the very highest energy standards that the state has. So it will be that.
Are there questions or comments for the public regarding this grant or this project? Ricky?
Hello, I'm Ricky, and I am curious what the rental prices for the units, what the range is going to be.
This will be project-based vouchers, so the rent is based on the adjusted gross income of the household, and it's no more than 30%. It's the same as the basis for the rent in public housing,
Right.
which means that the people coming from Melrose should see no change in their rent. It's
Does
very
that?
important.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, that's okay.
So, do you have more to say about that? So, does that include, when you say income, does that also include what medical debt or other debts they may be coming in with?
Actually, medical is a deduction that we take on the adjusted income. When we're figuring out somebody's income, they come in and they bring us all their medical expenses. And we deduct that from their gross wages or their gross income?
So their debt is considered?
Yes, yes.
So what is the anti-discrimination process for applicants?
Oh, we follow the federal fair housing rules very conscientiously. We use a waiting list system, and we are audited every year by both HUD and ourselves.
Because I'm aware that the Vermont Housing Agency has not been funding discrimination testing for the last year. So I hope, I want to do more than hope to just see that anti-discrimination application is really implemented. And so as part of that, is there an application fee for
No.
people who are applying? Okay.
No, there is not.
And what is the laundry accommodations in the facility?
Oh, good question. There are, in the new building, there will be a laundry on the second floor with full, probably 2 washers and 2 dryers. The laundry rooms in Red Clover are really very nice, and they were put in at the request of the residents at Melrose. They really designed them, and they're very nice. They have sinks and all kinds of things.
Have you only managed Red Clover as housing agencies or other places as well?
Other places as well.
Okay, have any of the places you have managed had mite or scabies epidemics?
No.
Okay, and so as part of that, have you, because there's no enforcement of this from any political jurisdiction, have you taken the responsibility to, in those shared laundry spaces, to maintain the equipment, doing specialty cleaning behind and under and inside the
Yes,
equipment for the
we do.
residents?
Yes,
And so like you have sanitary wipes for people?
yes,
And tablets that you put in the machines?
yes. And we have a maintenance person who goes in and cleans all the laundry facilities that we have.
Is it vented?
Yes, they're all vented.
Well, you're amazing. I have to say, I really applaud you and thank you so much for, that is above and beyond what I've seen from the other low-income housing facilities in the area where people are really at risk for not having that responsibility taken. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I would just add that in terms of fair housing, you might, it might give you some comfort to know that I was actually on the Vermont Human Rights Commission for 8 years. So I'm pretty familiar with fair housing and discrimination and what we need to be doing in Vermont to
Thank you.
be following that.
Thanks.
Part of the future I would like to see in such large housing complexes, especially for people who have, people who are low income are more likely to get sick because we're struggling with what health insurance does not cover. And so to see in these low income housing areas, like yes, the larger machines are great, especially if like it's like $1 a load. But to also have in the individual rental units their own washer dryer set up too. There's micro compact ones that are double stacks, and it's about $1,000 to $3,000 average right now to have those manufactured installed. And I think that would be a really great hygienic improvement for community health.
Thank you, Ricky.
Okay?
Are there further comments, questions from the public on Red Clover Commons or the grant? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a lengthy motion from somebody on the board.
This is a good one. I'll give this one a try.
All right.
I move that we to authorize the submission of an application to the Vermont Community Development Program for an implementation grant to Brattleboro Housing Partnerships in the amount of $350,000 for the Red Clover Commons 2 project, and to adopt a resolution from the Vermont Community Development Program for Grant Application Authority, identifying Assistant Town Manager Patrick Morland as the contact person and Town Manager Peter Elwell as the authorizing official.
Great. Daniel has made a motion to authorize submission of the application to the Vermont Community Development Program for the implementation grant to Brattleboro Housing Partnerships for $350,000 for the Red Clover Commons 2 project. And he also moves to adopt a resolution from the Vermont Community Development Program for grant application authority, which identifies Patrick Moreland and Peter Elwell as contacts, or Peter as the authorizing official and Patrick as the contact person for said grant.
I'll
All in
second
favor?
that.
Oh. Yeah. I always do that too. Is everybody in favor? All in favor? Please say
Aye.
aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Great. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you
That was
very much.
Very good information.
I would just close by extending a really heartfelt invitation to the board to come and see Red Clover and where we're going to put the new building. We'd
Great.
love to
Absolutely.
to show you.
I missed it last time, so
Well,
I'd love to come.
We'd love to show it to you.
And the garage, yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So our next. Yes, you can do so. Yep, we awkwardly sign while we work, which has always been my favorite. But it's tradition. Okay.
Whistling while we work.
That's right. Well, nobody wants to hear that from me. Okay, our next new order of business is a request to refinance Small Business Assistant Program, SBAP loan for Ironwood Brands LLC. And I'm going to turn this over to Peter to frame the discussion.
Thank you. So Eli Gould is here this evening, and Eli, if you'd like to come forward, he'll speak to this in a moment. I'd like to just summarize what's before you. So we've had a meeting, first a staff level meeting with Eli a few weeks back, and put a tentative refinancing plan together for the combining of two prior loans into one, and then the repayment of that debt to the small business program, that business assistance program that the town offers. Then the recommendation that came out of our meeting was reviewed and slightly modified by the committee that oversees this, the Small Business Assistance Program Committee. And the recommendation from the committee that's before you this evening is to refinance the loan in the amount of $42,000, where the payments would be structured as though it were to be a 10-year amortization, but where the payments would be in that monthly amount for the first 5 years, and then a balloon payment at the end of 5 years. The percentage rate on the loan is 3% annually, and the committee also, in addition to the balloon payment feature that they added, they've also asked that Eli provide income tax information annually to the committee for its review as the loan is being repaid. So subject to any comments that Eli would like to offer and the discretion of the select board and your decision this evening, staff believes that this is in order for you to approve as a restructuring of the existing debt.
Great. Thank you, Peter. Eli, would you like to offer some comments or?
Yeah, I guess I should. I certainly would like to say thanks to the town all along for this. These were two loans that I took out on two properties in town, both of which I significantly, through the purpose of the loans, fixed up. The loans did let me put a large industrial property which I had bought to house my business back onto active use. Put an ADA bathroom in, heating system, and everything else. My business and growth plan in that space really didn't work out, and I had to, in the end, not only sell the building, but had to restructure and lay off the people whom I had working for me since then. So that was a tough case. I was able to make a significant payment to the town when I sold that building, and I paid everybody else in front of the town at that time. And as I sit here now, I'm right about where I would have been had I just been making payments all along. But it's been a really tough couple of years, and I really do value working with Peter and everybody on getting to resolution on this, and everybody else who has been patient with me. I'm happy to say that I am earning money. I have to travel a lot more to do so now. and I'm paying everybody back, and I do intend to pay every dollar back on everything that I borrowed. The challenge on this now, of course, is I'm doing it as a sole earner. So having the new programs in this loan fund, which I think are new since I was there, did have that 10-year and 7-year and 5-year, which when I borrowed, I only had 5 years. I didn't really have enough ammo to do everything I was trying to do, and that ended up being a big challenge. So I think it'll be great for future people to have that 10. If there's any consideration given, as my wife and I have talked through this, the 5-year balloon is still going to pose a pretty big challenge to us. I hope it doesn't put me in a worse spot in 5 years than I am in now. I will have most of the I won't have all of the principal paid down. I will have to do a comprehensive refinance at that time. There's no outside source of income. I'm 100% at risk in all of this, and I personally guaranteed all of my loans. So if there's any consideration given relative to the loan fund, and there were a 7-year, as is being offered when people are buying fixed equipment, that would be a huge help to me. I'm not actively earning any money with this barn. I do intend to keep on improving it. I have a home site nearby, but the 7-year could let me at least get my credit and the value of that place up to where a comprehensive refinance would be more possible. It also wouldn't necessarily be happening in the first year of my son's college career. So these are things we think about, but I do if that's not possible, I do really just want to say thanks for the overall restructure, which is here, and you can make your recommendations to that committee. We've already talked about it with them, so they're looking to you guys for guidance on that one point.
Yes, please do, Peter. Sorry.
No, not at all. Thank you. I just wanted to add one thing. So thank you, Eli, for telling the story to lay out for the board the backstory to how we got to where we are today. I thought that was your story to tell and not mine, which is why I didn't say this earlier. But I think it's important to note here that throughout the difficult situation that you encountered with the business situation, you stayed in touch with the town. You and I were frequently talking to one another. You stayed in touch with the finance department. We knew what was happening, and we knew that there would come a time when it was right to put these pieces together into a refinancing. And so, you've made clear to us throughout this process, you're a person in this community and of this community and caring about the community, and you weren't going to walk away from this obligation to pay. And you've been true to all of that. And so we think that the repackaging of this in the manner that's been presented this evening, and with the request that you've added, that it be a 7-year balloon instead of a 5, is entirely in order.
Liz?
I've had a 7-year balloon mortgage, and I think that's the common time frame, so I'm perfectly acceptable to that.
Yeah, I was nervous when I saw 5. When I think balloon from my past experience, that's generally when people are doing such a quick balloon, it's because they can afford the loan, and they, maybe they're flipping the property, or, it's not something I generally think about when I think about somebody who's struggling. So I'm relieved to hear that administration is amenable to, and the committee is amenable to, a 7-year, because that makes more sense to me with my financial background.
Oh, so just to be clear, it's currently, as written, it's a 5-year.
That's correct.
And not only that, it says 2014.
Yeah, that's my error. I apologize. And that's in the
Is that a holdover?
in the motion. It should say 2019. I'm sorry, 2024. Because
Yeah,
that's when the balloon payment would be due. But if you decide to make it 7, it would actually be 2026. In the administrative report, I inaccurately put it here.
Yeah, right there. Instead of
Oh, yes.
14, yeah.
Oh, I see. That's why I wasn't really even seeing it
Yeah,
all.
it should have been
So it should be
drafted as 2024. But if you decide to go 7, it would be 2026.
Is there, now that we've kind of talked for a moment, is there further discussion about the idea of a 7 versus a 5 from the board?
My only hesitation is that we don't become a board that wants to change and fix everything that this committee has put in time on, but this feels like it would certainly make things a little easier to you. Is that correct?
Yeah, oh yeah, and
I just want to say that part of our consideration of this is because you have been very good about working with us and have no plans to go off to another country at any time soon, like some other folks that might have done that to us recently. So that's all my comments.
Well, I think it's consistent with the plan as business assistance. That's this additional assistance for your business.
Okay. Are there comments or questions from the public before we make our decision? Okay. Would somebody like to make yet another long motion noting that in the motion after where it says due on April 1, we would be saying 2026?
I will.
Okay, Liz.
I was about to I had a Robert's Rules question.
What's your Robert's
If we
Rules
should
question?
approach it as an amendment first and then, or do we just?
You haven't yet made a motion, so although
Gotcha.
and we always phrase the administrative report as possible motions because there's always the potential that on any given item, the board may choose to do something different from
Yep.
what is being presented to you. So in this case, it's perfectly fine to make the motion with the modification.
Right.
Great.
And in that case, if someone was opposed to the change as opposed to the original motion, you sort of have to. That's the only advantage to doing an amendment vote first.
So but then, in Robert's rules, what you need to do is move it as written.
Correct.
And then
Absolutely correct.
and then have an amendment
Okay.
process and then a final vote. So
It's good that we're discussing our processes
Yeah.
later tonight as well.
Yes.
So I will shut up now.
Okay, great.
I would like to make a motion to approve the refinancing of small business assistance program loans to Ironwood Brands LLC and 21 O'Brien Drive LLC into a single loan of $42,000 with the following terms. Number 1, a 3% annual interest. Number 2, 60 monthly payments of $405.56 each.
excuse me for interrupting. It'll
Yes.
actually now be 84 annual payments instead of 60.
Oh, thank you.
That's a monthly.
Okay.
84 monthly.
84 monthly payments of $405.56 each commencing on May 1st, 2019. And a balloon payment of $22,569.
Actually,
It's
that'll
gonna change now too. Where's that calculator?
I don't know the amount of the balloon payment, so
And a
Does this
balloon
refer to
payment
a balloon
This-
payment
to be
Change.
determined.
Yeah.
to be determined?
yeah, that's fine. An amount to be determined by the town's finance director.
An amount to be determined by the town's finance director due on April 1st, 2026. A new personal guarantee from Eli Gould. And number 4, Mr. Gould to provide a SBAP loan committee with a copy of his personal income tax return annually.
How's that sound? Sound right? Okay. Liz has made a wonderfully detailed motion to approve the refinancing through the Small Business Assistant Program loans to Ironwood LLC and 21 Ironwood Brand LLC and 21 O'Brien Drive LLC into a single loan. Edits have been made as needed and will be recorded properly in the minutes, so I'm not going to read the whole thing. All those in favor of this motion? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks. Good luck.
Great. Okay. Our next item of business is a request to add language on the recently approved West Brattleboro historical marker. And this request comes to us from the Brattleboro Words Project. And if, there you are, you already know what's going on. Continue your trek.
Memo, shall I give that out?
So I'm Sandy Rouse, and I'm on the leadership committee part of the Words Project. I'm the director of the Brattleboro Literary Festival.
Thanks, Sandy.
On January 22nd, Michael Bosworth with the West Brattleboro Association petitioned the Select Board to approve a new historic marker for the Glenwood Seminary Brattleboro Academy, and it was passed 5-0. The Brattleboro Advisory Council on the Historic Preservation met on February 21st and approved the Glenwood Seminary Brattleboro Academy site marker. The next step is that the Department of Historic Preservation will notify VTrans to review the site. The text on the marker reflects the history of the two schools. We are here today to ask approval to amend to add language to the back side of the same plaque to mark one of Glenwood Seminary's most famous students, Mary Wilkins Freeman. Mary Wilkins Freeman, who was then Mary Wilkins, lived in Brattleboro from 1867 to 1883 and attended the Glenwood Ladies Seminary. Her father built a house on Grove Street, and if you drove here, it was on the left as you pulled in the parking lot. It's that multifamily place right there. And he also had a dry goods store, and it was formerly known as the Wilkins Block. The store is no longer there, but it's near the intersections of Main and High. Mary attended Brattleboro Union High School and then later attended the Glenwood Ladies Seminary. She went on to become one of the most famous writers of her time, and she's always credited the beauty of this area for inspiring her to write. She wrote 22 volumes of short stories and essays, more than 100 uncollected stories, 14 novels, 8 children's books, 3 collections of poetry, 3 plays, and even a film script. The festival will have several events this year related to Mary Wilkins Freeman. On September 12th, we will be screening The Revolt of Mother, which is based on a short story that she wrote with Amy Madigan will be in the film. And then on Thursday, October 17th, Brent Kendrick, who is the editor of her collected letters, Infant Sphinx, and also Christopher Benfey, who wrote a book about Kipling's time in Vermont, a new book coming out. It turns out that Kipling and Mary Wilkins Freeman actually knew each other, so we discovered that when we were doing the research. And there will also be an exhibition on Mary Wilkins Freeman to be installed, and it will be including letters, facsimiles of letters, photos, books, and other artifacts. It'll be at the Brooks Memorial Library. We've been in conversation with the state historical representatives about the possibility, and we are hoping the plaque will be installed by October so we can include it in festival publicity. The wording on the plaque is included in the copy of the letter that I think Jerry just gave you, dated March 25th. And so that's pretty much it. Just add some words on the back of a sign, basically. That's kind of a long way of saying that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I appreciated the rich history that you gave, so thank you. Questions or comments from members of the board on this proposed language for the signage?
Clarifying question. In Michael Bosworth's letter from October 17th last year, there was text in there about the Glenwood Seminary and Brattleboro Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Is this text going to be in addition to that or instead of that?
It's going to be on the back side of the sign.
Okay.
This text will be just about Mary Wilkins Freeman.
Okay.
And about the fact that she attended that school.
Okay.
The language is what he just handed out.
Yeah.
Basically just gives a little...
Thanks.
Other questions or comments from the board regarding the verbiage?
No, I'd just say that the festival is great. I'm a big fan. So good work on that. And it's pretty nice. Hopefully it would tie into the timing of the sign.
Yeah, we're hoping it'll be done by then. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Are there questions or comments from members of the public on the added verbiage to the back of the sign? Ricky?
My name is Ricky, and so would you clarify I'm ignorant. The Brattleboro Words Project sounds like you organize festivals and plaques, literary festivals and plaques for the area.
The Words Project is it's a consortium of 5 organizations in town. It's the Brattleboro, the Brooks Memorial Library, Brattleboro Historical Society, the Brattleboro Literary Festival. Help me out here.
Right Action.
Right Action.
And Marlboro College.
And Marlboro College.
In Right Action, are they a social justice group?
Right Action is it's a writers group.
Oh, it's a W. Okay.
WRITE.
All right, talking linguistics here. So, were any of those groups involved with the movement to modify the colonel, the use of the word colonel for this other school?
Oh, she might be referring to the Colonel.
The colonel.
Oh,
Whose mascot
Right.
is the colonels?
right. No,
Okay, not related.
not related at all.
Okay.
No, the Words Project and the Literary Festival are just free events that celebrate the literary history of the area.
Would you encourage a change for the use of the word colonel and colonel in the other schools?
I don't know anything about it, honestly. I live in Newfane, sorry.
I think that's not. Thank you.
Well, just so you know, you taught me a lot just now. Just that those are colonel, like those are people that militantly colonized and killed the indigenous people of the area for white supremacy and Puritanism. So I think that very sensitive to language. We should change that.
Thank you, Ricky. Did I see another hand go up for? Okay, Mike.
Michael Bosworth. And I'll just be brief, but West Brattleboro Association applied for the original sign. We welcome this addition, and so we have no objection at all. We'd like to see it, so in case you were wondering.
Thanks, Michael. Okay. Looks like we are ready for a motion. I'm not allowed to make.
I feel like it's Tim's turn.
It is Tim's.
I'm not even ready though.
But honestly, it's your turn.
Honestly, I've lost it. Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve allowing the Brattleboro Words Project and West Brattleboro Association to work with the state of Vermont to modify a planned historic marker so that it will recognize novelist Mary Wilkins Freeman, along with the Glenwood Seminary and the Brattleboro Academy.
Great, thank you so much. Don't worry, we'll make David do twice as many when he gets back. That's on public TV, so it's a promise. All right, so Tim has made a motion to approve allowing the Brattleboro Words Project and West Brattleboro Association to work with the state of Vermont to modify a planned historic marker, allowing it to recognize novelist Mary Wilkins Freeman along with the Glenwood Seminary and Brattleboro Academy. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, motion carries 4-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Okay, we move on to our next order of new business, which is authorization for the planning department to apply for a tiny grant. Peter, would you like to
Thank you.
talk about this?
Yeah, it's my favorite grant program. Tiny Grant is actually the official name of the program. It's not just descriptive, but it is also descriptive. So in this particular case, it's a $600 grant that the planning department would like to apply for on behalf of the Conservation Commission. And it's offered by the Association of Vermont Conservation Commissions for projects like this, which is in this case to manually control Japanese knotweed that is invasive in the landscaping at West River Park. We'd ask for your approval, please.
Great. One thing I'd like to add is that Japanese knotweed is edible. It can be harvested and used much like rhubarb, and it's best harvested from mid-April to May, so if you're wanting to get out there and do so, that also is a great way to help your town, and then you can eat it, make a pie. Okay, any
Salt.
other?
Salt is.
No.
No?
Is it?
Sugar. If it's like
Sugar.
rhubarb, it's sugar.
Any other comments or questions from the board on the tiny grant?
It's hard to follow that. So where I'm from, we have rhubarb crumble. I don't know if you have
Oh,
that in
yeah.
America. Maybe you can have a knotweed crumble.
Yes.
You're not
That's
from
what I'm talking
Brattleboro?
about.
No, I'm not. Do I even have a question? I'm gonna just feel the urge to talk about rhubarb crumble.
That's fine.
This is what we need in the middle of.
Who will do this work?
Breaks it up.
The Conservation Commission?
I believe they're going to do it themselves. I don't know that for sure. I'm sorry.
So-
we can find out and send you an email to confirm.
I was just wondering whether there were like volunteers required for this kind of thing.
The Conservation Commission's projects are almost always volunteer labor as opposed to contracted. I believe that's what'll happen in this case, but I'm not certain.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, are there questions or comments from the public on the tiny grant for the Japanese knotweed controlling or eating? Okay, I made that part up. Sorry. I wrote it down earlier and I've been excited all night to discuss it. Then I would entertain a motion regarding this authorization.
I'll move to authorize the Planning Department to apply on behalf of the Conservation Commission for a $600 tiny grant from the Association of Vermont Conservation Commissions for manual control of Japanese knotweed at West River Park.
Great, Daniel has made a motion authorizing the planning department to apply on behalf of the Conservation Commission for $600 tiny grant from the Association of Vermont Conservation Commission for manual control of Japanese knotweed at West River Park. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
May I add something to the record in response to Daniel's question? So I just took a look at the text in the documentation regarding the grant application, and it says explicitly that this will be modeled on work that was done last season in which volunteers were invited to help manually control the Japanese knotweed throughout the growing season. So it'll be done that way again.
So volunteers here and at home can get in touch, right?
Absolutely.
All right, very good.
This would be a great time for people to use the bathroom.
Yes.
So we're taking a recess?
Yeah, I mean, we were doing pretty well on time, so maybe a 2-minute break, because I want to make sure we all have our heads together for this next item. Or 3-minute break, whatever. Don't make me hunt you down.
Do you use the gavel for this? Maybe I'll go.
Okay. We are back to reconvene the meeting. Thank you all for bearing with us while we got our bearings. We are now moving on to item E under new business, which is our representative town meeting follow-up matters. And those who saw the meeting or were at the meeting now know why I asked for a break before we discussed it, because it is sure to be a good time. Okay. How's the best way to do this, Peter? Do you want to read through these? Do you want me to read through these?
Sure, I'll give just a quick summary of why it's before you the way that it's before you, and then I think it should go wherever you and the select board would like to take the conversation.
Fantastic.
This is the second year that we've done this in this way, and it's because we found that sometimes in the past, coming out of representative town meeting, when there were certain things that were not official actions of the meeting, but were advisory or guidance that came out of the meeting, that some of those matters got followed up in due course, and some got kind of lost, and we'd get questions later in the year about, hey, whatever happened to such and such. We'd go back and kind of check the record of the meeting and remember what it was that representative town meeting had provided guidance on. So last year, we tried to improve that approach by identifying in a memo at this time of year coming out of the representative town meeting things that the meeting had asked for the select board to follow up on. And so that seemed to work pretty well. There were some minor things that got addressed right away. There were some other things that got addressed later in the year. So coming out of town meeting this year, I prepared this memo dated March 28th that enumerates 7 different topics that came up during the course of the meeting that in one way or another may involve follow-up action from the select board as the year goes along. And if you would like me to read them, I can name them, or I can stop there and have you go forward with the discussion one by one, however you'd like to go.
Okay. I think we can just read through this. So number 1, I see we have consider rent stabilization. If we can all see that. There was a non-binding recommendation made during consideration of the 1% local option sales tax. It's something that the body asked us to consider. And it looks like if we were to consider that, then the town might recommend that Attorney Bob Fisher research Vermont law on the matter and provide back to the select board a written report for review at a future select board meeting. So at this time, I'd open it up to the board to discuss that topic in general and the idea of Attorney Fisher doing said research.
I'd certainly be in support of learning more about it. We're not in a position right now to have a big discussion about it, I don't think. But since it was brought up, we should look into the ability to do such a thing, number 1.
Right.
And then the pros and cons down the road, I would think. Certainly, rent is a tough nut to crack in Brattleboro, as is many places. And part of my pushing for the local option sales tax was to help, hopefully, help stabilize rent in a way, because the more that landlords pay in property taxes, the more they're going to charge in rent. And there's not a one-to-one relationship, but I do believe it's all part of the big picture of making Brattleboro affordable.
Thanks, Tim. Are there further comments?
I'd be in favor of more information. I don't know how I would ultimately feel about rent stabilization, but certainly learning about it is not a bad idea.
Yeah, so this seems like a really hard thing to do. I think that having Bob Fisher take a look at it and see what Vermont law has to say about it. I'm also kind of curious, like, whether Vermont law would allow the town of Brattleboro to, to stabilize rents, or whether Vermont law allows us to do some other things that could have an impact upon rents, so not necessarily directly stabilizing rent. Whether there's something to be done around property taxes or whatnot. the rent. There was a guy that ran for office in New York, and his party was called "The Rent Is Too Damn High." I hope
like
that's
it.
okay for the kids. And you know,
Barely.
like when I moved from New York City to Brattleboro, I took a big chunk out of my salary, but the rent didn't drop in quite the same way. And you know, that is one of the challenges in living here, and you know, looking for work that pays us enough to be able to afford to live here. So I hope that we'll consider this topic and also keep talking about how people can afford to live in this town.
I would also assume that this investigation would include what other Vermont towns are doing towards this issue.
So if we have a general consensus, it sounds to me like we'd love to give the green light for Bob to look at the legalities around rent stabilization in Vermont. How to say, you know, I liked Daniel's idea of, are there other things? And I know that that's super vague to give, but if you
Yeah.
could word it nicely. Rob?
We'll discuss that with Bob. I think that is going to be a very difficult target to hit because of it being so broad. But I think what we can definitely do is include the part about, you know, are there examples of other towns that
Yes.
have taken action under Vermont law on this, and kind of get that conversation started. And you know, if we generate ideas about other ways in which stabilizing rents might be achieved without it being actually imposed as a regulatory matter, then we'll certainly incorporate that into what we bring back to you. If we don't come up with anything there, then we'll rely on the further conversation to guide us on what more you need.
Sure.
Okay.
It might be that Sue Fillion can help with this investigation.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. When we speak of staff, we speak of staff broadly. So it's often the case that you know, it's not something necessarily that just Patrick and I, or even that Patrick and I would do, but that other departments, you know, departments of the town would definitely be involved with.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
So the second item that we're looking at is the plan for marketing Brattleboro.
Are you taking public comment?
We're going to take public comment at the very end. Since these articles are not up for debate in any way, they're simply directives to us. So at the very end, after we've discussed everything, we will certainly open it up to general comments. The plan for marketing Brattleboro, so this is not necessarily our task, but representative town meeting's approval of the 42,119, yep, for collaborative marketing of Brattleboro by the Chamber of Commerce and the Downtown Brattleboro Alliance was conditioned upon those two organizations providing a marketing plan that we consider acceptable. So when I say it's not our task, what I mean is the plans need to be drafted. So at this moment, you know, we sitting around talking about it may not be the most efficient use, but we all know that it will become our task once we've seen said plans. So I recommend we just wait for those plans and then schedule it on our public agenda.
Do we want to engage in conversation with these two entities about the plan? Or do they just know to submit something? I think that's a little fuzzy.
I don't think there's anything wrong with asking them to come in. If you're asking, should we have them come in, like, hey, we've had town meeting, we know the directive, you know the directive. Do you want to have a framing conversation and then have them submit? Because I don't want to get into us micromanaging their plan yet.
No, I don't want to micromanage, but
That was a
I
joke.
think guidance as to what we would be looking for would be helpful to them.
What do other board members feel about that?
My position in the previous board was that I was pretty confident that these two organizations could come up with some great ideas for marketing Brattleboro, quote unquote. And I didn't really want to see the board go down the path of micromanaging exactly what that should be. But having said that, I mean, certainly hearing ideas can't be too much harm.
Daniel?
Yeah, I was just kind of imagining, like, they bring us a plan a month from now, and we say, no, that's no
Right.
good. So then they go back to their plan drawing board and, and come up with another plan. So that, a bit like how we wanted to get the water main fixed more quickly, maybe we want this plan to get in action more quickly. So maybe having them come in for them to share their preliminary, their early thoughts on the matter, might be useful. And then if we did have some particular things that the board was looking to see in the plan, that would be a good time to let them know.
Could we look at space on an upcoming,
Sure.
soon, maybe within the month of April agenda, where we have time to get our expectations together and they have time to get some ideas together?
That'd be the next one, which is the 16th, 2 weeks from today.
What do you guys think, the 16th or the...
Or May 7th.
Or May 7th.
Seems like a lot of things are stacking up
Maybe
for
May
the
7th.
16th.
May 7th.
You guys, are you okay with May 7th?
Yeah, I'll defer to your wisdom on this.
And I would just
I have no idea what's on the 16th.
I think this could be sort of an informal conversation that doesn't talk about budgets, because that was a big sticking point
Okay.
last time, sort of a chicken and an egg scenario where they might be telling us we can't really come up with a budget until we know what we're doing, and we can't know what we're doing until we... So now we have the budget,
Right.
so we don't need to see a breakdown. We're just talking about what's the general plan, right? Okay.
I guess I would like to see some quite clearly defined goals, and maybe some ways that they intend to go after those goals.
And
Metrics.
just as in town meeting, metrics for evaluation.
Good. Is there a way that you feel comfortable making that clear to those two
Oh, yeah,
organizations?
absolutely.
Perfect.
We'll pass on your invitation for them to come May 7th and have an initial discussion about where this goes.
That's great. Okay. This is a big one for me. This is convene RTM's Human Services Review Committee. And I'm going to actually read this one out loud for us because I need to wrap my brain more around this. It says, Jan Anderson will work with members of the Human Services Review Committee to schedule meetings for the committee to, 1, allocate additional FY20 human services funding approved by RTM beyond the recommended amount that was published in the RTM warning. We all get that. You know that there is extra money.
Yeah.
2, recommend a standard target amount for the future so we don't have, quite so much discontent coming up from the floor with the amount of funding. So one example of that would be, that was thrown around was 1% of the total FY20 budget as the target amount for FY21. So kind of using that as the target rather than projecting in the budget and then reconciling at the end to actually give less of a moving target. And that would be something we put in place for funding of human services in the future fiscal years. Does anybody mind if I just spit out this comment in my head?
Go for it.
So that addresses the money part of it, which clearly for the past couple of years has been a challenge. But it makes me like when we're looking at changing a process that people have clearly been discontented with, at least on the fiscal side, it makes me then want to see the whole process. And I think because it goes through Lauren and doesn't come through us, it feels to me like a little bit of a black box. And I'm not saying that it is, that's just my feeling. And it makes me want to see, it makes me want to request the bylaws, the policies, the procedures, a list of the members, and kind of so that we can sit down and I need to have a better understanding of. So often when a system is constantly called into question, it makes me wonder, where's the fuzzy boundary? Why are people discontented? Is it really just that people want to spend more money on human services, or is there something that we need to tweak in the process itself that's not being addressed yet? And I'll open it to the board.
May I have a quick clarification before the board
That's
discussion?
okay with me if it's okay with everybody else.
One thing that's important to note here is that unlike the committees to which you'll be making appointments later tonight, the Human Services Review Committee is a creation of representative town meeting rather than a select board appointed. And this body is not, this committee is not advisory to the select board. It's advisory to representative town meeting. So think the finance committee.
Yep.
That's This is directly parallel to the Finance Committee's role in town government, just has a different subject matter.
I see.
So you want to keep that in mind as you consider what level of review the select board would give to the details of how they function. So we certainly can be responsive to your desire to see their documentation and understand better how they function.
Yeah. But I can't do anything with it. And so that's okay, I hear you.
You should feel a boundary here that is unusual for you in your conduct of the day-to-day, month-to-month business of the town, because this one is specifically for representative town meeting.
Thank you for clarifying that for me and for everybody. Appreciate that, Liz.
Over the years, as a representative town meeting member, the Human Service Committee really has provided a valuable professional service. And the members of the Human Service Committee are all very well qualified for their work. The Human Service Committee does not have a hierarchy. In other words, there's no chair, which is unlike the Finance Committee. So I think that's what makes people view it as less organized than it is. But it is very well organized. They're just a committee of equals. So I've been at town meeting when the pendulum had swung in the opposite direction. And this recent town meeting was an example of people wanting very much to support the Human Services Committee and their agenda. But I have seen the opposite. So I don't feel that it's under threat or under question. I just feel that we all need to, in our budget deliberations, make sure that we understand what the recommendations from the floor were in terms of increasing the amount to at least 1% of the budget.
Thank you for that perspective on how the committee functions and how that might lead to any misunderstandings. I appreciate that.
Welcome.
Daniel?
Yeah, I guess just I wanted to clarify that this work really is Jan's going to get the Human Services Review Committee together, and in that meeting, they're going to figure out how to allocate the additional funding, and they are going to set a target amount.
Yes.
And then
Or they are going to recommend.
they're going to recommend.
They could recommend it.
Uh-huh.
We're going to.
And then it's going to come back here or go back to town meeting.
So, may I
Yeah.
answer? So, yes, the allocation for this year unequivocally has been delegated to the committee by representative town meeting. The question about a target for future years is more fuzzy than that. I believe it was clear that representative town meeting wants the committee to weigh in on that question. And then when we bring forward a staff recommendation for a budget in the fall, and you then work on that budget and make it your recommendation to representative town meeting, together what we're going to need to do is, have heard the committee's recommendation, decide whether or not that works with all the other priorities that we're balancing at that time, and then, either include the amount that they're asking for or not. But certainly if not, then be prepared to explain why not as we take your recommended budget forward to town meeting.
Thanks for that. Did that clarify that?
Yeah, thanks.
Tim, do you want to weigh in?
There's a lot I could say about this, so I think I'll just keep a comment to my concern. It is a weird situation because in the past we've had an amount and we haven't really attempted to mess with all the hard work the committee does, and I think that's the way it should be. But it is our budget, so we must weigh in on the total amount.
Right.
The one thing I wanted to say is that I believe, having lived through town meeting, as many of us here did, that part of the problem this year was and we should take responsibility as the previous select board. Well, I should.
I'm teasing
anyway.
you.
That we did consider two organizations, two worthy organizations who came in after the deadline. I believe that I will be resolved myself at least, and I'll recommend to the rest of the board that we endeavor to not do that again this year. I believe it added to the confusion and the scramble. Multiple articles were combined into one for discussion, and so that added to the what I believe was about 3-hour discussion. Okay, so I think just at least right now I'm going to take a personal pledge to just say we'll figure this out the way it's going to work with town meeting and this committee. But let's consider the possible ramifications of allowing people to come before us and then saying, yes, you can approach town meeting for additional money if you've missed the deadline. I think it's disruptive to the whole process.
That's good insight. You hear that? Does anybody have any further?
Just to kind of add on to that, and also then to respect the decision that town meeting makes about that. I mean, it's there as an article to be yayed or nayed or amended, and that's what happened. And it's a long process. Yeah, it definitely took up some time, but I felt like it was worth it in the end. And I understand that the work of the Human Services Review Committee is good work, and that I just want to kind of say publicly out in the world that I don't think, at least I know how I voted and why I voted that way. I don't think that the choosing to put additional funds to this is a critical statement about the work of the review committee. I believe that it's saying, yes, we believe in you, and also we want to offer this as well.
I like that.
I would agree. I think it's a complimentary view of their work.
However, I just want to say that the history of having this committee is to avoid the very thing that we went through for 3 hours.
Understood.
So the idea is that the committee makes the tough decisions. So if town meeting members become generous every single year, then we are put back in the same sort of position of, okay, how do we allocate additional generosity, etc.
Sounds like a good problem.
I think that could be remedied by having a more robust description from the Human Services Committee about their work. Because that would allow us to understand that what a particular agency's needs are and why they made the decision that they did.
That would be really helpful to me. I think that's part of what
Yeah.
I'm feeling ungrounded about.
Yeah.
Not because I don't trust the committee. They clearly have hours of grueling work that they put into it. But because I don't know how to answer the questions that come at me.
Right, and then I think that the meeting members would have a broader understanding of the work that went into it, and a broader understanding of what the needs are. Because now I think there's just a reaction to be helpful without having the deep understanding that the committee has themselves.
I agree with that. Could you pass that on for us, or how does
Will
that?
do.
Wonderful.
Yep.
And could I speak to that also? The town manager's office does administrative work for the moderator and for the representative town meeting. The process is pretty clear. The committee asks for the moderator to appoint them. Generally in the fall is when this happens. All of their meetings are warned. All of their meetings are public. Their application is on the town's website. On the application, it gives some things that they specifically are looking for. And it is as open as any other of the committee meetings are. It's not under the select board's purview, so they don't see it as often. But the information is all on the town's website. It's all public meetings. They meet in public. They discuss the applications. We administratively collect the applications from the organizations. At the deadline, we pass it on to the committee. The committee then divvies it up, and they meet in public and discuss each one of these requests publicly. So I think it is on the website, and I think they have a very clear process about how it is. It's just not under the select board purview, so we don't see it quite as often. but it is there.
Thank you so much, Jan. That's great. Great information.
I had like a thought all of a sudden that it's really because I don't understand how some things work. So when the town meeting finance committee meets, are those meetings like public and televised? Or,
Oh, I don't know
I don't
about
mean like
that part.
live.
Yeah, that's good.
No.
Are they recorded?
They're public meetings, they're warned, there's an agenda, there's minutes, and,
Is BCTV there or no?
no.
Yeah.
And maybe getting BCTV in both of these.
There,
meetings.
there are members of the public who attend, and then our not only are the meeting minutes on the website, but the reports are also published,
Right.
as you know.
Yeah.
And BCTV comes at a cost, and so someone would have to hire BCTV for whatever these meetings.
This is exactly the kind of conversation I wanted to have on this topic personally.
Could we get that cost?
I don't know that what is in
Or
the
if
budget.
that is like,
And
sorry.
and then spending money on separate committees is another discussion.
Got it.
Well, this, as a representative town meeting committee, it might not be up to us to determine whether or not it's televised.
Yeah, that's true, because it's not up to us to determine much of anything besides the money. Yeah.
But the meetings are open to the public, so anyone can attend.
Okay.
And talk about each of the organization's applications.
This is great conversation.
And if folks want to join the Human Services Review Committee, they should get in touch with the town manager's office.
And we can connect
Yes,
them to
we
Lauren.
send all of the applications to the moderator, who actually makes the appointments.
Yeah.
We do administrative work for him, but he's the one who actually has the authority and makes the appointments.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Do you need directive
No,
from us outside of what
that's sufficient on that. I think you've had a
Thank you.
good conversation. I know that you'd like us to pass a couple of messages on to the committee, but otherwise, this ball is in the committee's court.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so the next item is equally as exciting. It is the $100,000 for energy efficiency and/or sustainability. This funding is the notes that have been written up with this. And I'll say many representative town meeting members voiced support for the funds to be used for the manner to hire a sustainability officer or similar position. However, it should be noted that the actual wording of the article, which was approved at town meeting, states that the funding is to be expended at the discretion of the select board. It looks like there's a recommendation that the select board continue forward with that plan and allow staff sufficient time to work with community members who have been doing the research of the potential scope of a sustainability officer position, with the hopes that the results of that research would be brought forward or could be brought forward in early summer for the select board to consider. And that way we could make informed decisions about proceeding with creation of a position versus investment of those funds and other energy efficiency or sustainability initiatives. I think that seems like something the board should discuss, because I forgot what I was just going to say.
I thought that we were going to hold off this until David was at the meeting.
Which is fine, yeah.
Yeah.
True.
I feel like I had to
So
read it
we'll
because it
not
was
talk
publicly
about
warned.
the exciting thing.
Is it,
I don't know.
he's coming back tonight?
I don't think
No,
he's coming back
no.
tonight. I think
So we're
he's
going for the
asking us to
16th.
move us,
Okay.
which I think is a good idea anyways. But I wanted to bring it up tonight in a public meeting so that the public knows and the reps know that, we've heard it, it's noted on here. David has been discussing this, in my ear and publicly and probably in Peter's ear, Jan's ear, everybody's ear for the majority of last year. And so I'm fine with respecting his wish to be part of the more robust conversations to come, including the initial one that would be had on number 4 tonight.
And then when that takes place, Peter, will you update us on your efforts to secure a position or define a position?
Yes. I think we should speak to all of that, to the process that we're already in, and then to what that process, what the select board's perspective is on having that process play out versus possibly, making some other preliminary decision. Absolutely. I'm prepared to speak to that. I think we should put it on for 2 weeks from tonight, and I'll be prepared to speak to where we are as staff on that work at that time, and then I think you'll all have lots to say about it.
Yeah, that sounds good. We're all good with holding our thoughts until the 16th for the purpose of having David join us.
Absolutely.
Just this time, David. Okay, so number 5 is creation of an arts fund, and that is representative town meeting's non-binding advice to the select board to solicit recommendations from the Arts Council of Windham County regarding public art projects to be funded with a total of $15,000 during FY20. We have here some lovely.
Yeah, Matt, note.
Yes, please.
So there was some supplemental information that we circulated that was not in the notebooks because it occurred to us after this was distributed. But there is a public arts policy that the town select board adopted back in 2009 that has been used to guide the creation of art in public places in Brattleboro. And I was of the misunderstanding that the town arts committee was actually specified as the body to whom these kinds of proposals had to be submitted, and so that the arts committee could then bring them forward to the select board. The reason I was of that misunderstanding that it was actually written that way in the policy is because that is the way it has been. That has been the town's consistent practice for many years now, probably dating back to 2009. So the application form, for instance, for someone to propose a public art project in Brattleboro is at the top indicates that you submit it to the town arts committee. That's not what the policy says, but it is the instructions that are included within the application form. And we raised all of that after Jan and I reflected on what we knew to be the practice and then collected these documents. We raised that question because I think there's a sort of a threshold question for the select board to decide at the outset of this. If you do wish to create an arts fund with this $15,000 and to have a process by which you would invest those funds into public art projects in Brattleboro, whether you want to follow the guidance of representative town meeting as that proposal was made to rely on the Arts Council of Windham County to bring you those proposals, or whether you want to follow the process that has been in place to have people go to the town arts committee and then have the arts committee make a recommendation to you regarding public art projects.
Ooh. Okay. This could get awkward.
And that's not something that you need to decide tonight. It's just something that is a sort of open question at this point.
Wouldn't it be great to decide something tonight?
We could decide to put it off for another day.
For another day. Does anybody have anything they want to say?
Got
on
one
this?
left.
Yeah, I do.
Daniel?
Well,
Go ahead, Liz.
I just want to clarify, we're really talking about two things. We're talking about the Arts Council of Windham County, and we're talking about the Brattleboro Arts Committee.
That's
Right.
correct.
Right. And so I guess RTM is saying that their non-binding advice was that it come through Arts Council, but our practice has always been that it go directly to our Arts Committee. And so we have a choice here of whether or not we want to take the non-binding advice to go through Arts Council or whether or not we want to stay with our current practice of using our Arts Committee.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's why I said this is awkward.
Okay. Let me ask another question.
Yeah.
So when I'm reading the minutes for representative town meeting and remembering back to this moment, bearing in mind that it was after 7 o'clock at night and we'd been there since 8 in the morning.
Right.
My recollection was not necessarily that these funds be used for public arts projects, but that it be a public arts fund. When I've spoke with artists in the community, one of the things that is a challenge for them are things like having affordable studio space. the People's Building, which was a popular spot for lots of people looking for fairly affordable office space and studio space, kicked everybody out. I could have used nicer language, but I don't have it. So I wondered if, like, the scope of this fund could not only be for, like, public art projects. I have a little bit of a bias against public art projects. I don't know, I just don't love them. They can be kind of something nice to look at, but yeah, I would rather improve the lives and conditions of artists already living in our town. So that's that.
Some clarification.
Yeah, please do.
You actually have no direction you need to follow on this item. You'll recall probably, although
That's
it
a
was late in the
positive
evening,
thing.
that we explicitly answered a question during the course of that discussion that the body could add $15,000 to the budget, and it was clear that the body was doing so because of the request that had been made by artists
Wow.
to create an arts fund, but the body didn't have any authority that day to direct that an arts fund would be created. And so it follows that there's also no strings attached to exactly what that money in that arts fund would be used for. So the folks who brought this forward and asked for this money to be appropriated were specifically speaking about having it be invested in public art projects so as to be able to compensate the artists for that work. But you, A, don't need to create a program at all. And B, if you do choose to create a program that has an arts focus, it could be to fund projects or it could be to accomplish some other goal.
Okay.
It's very much wide open.
So we can think about that.
Yep.
Sure.
Anybody else have any ideas besides thinking about that for tonight?
I think I'll just throw out that I don't necessarily think it's appropriate to involve the Arts Council of Windham County if we're going to consider expending town funds.
I agree with you.
So, not commenting on the funds themselves or the
Right.
purpose of the funds,
Right.
but the administration of the funds.
Yeah.
Let's keep it in-house, as we say.
Yeah. I'm inclined to feel
Is
the
that
same.
controversial? Or?
It's not controversial.
I think it's the
I
opposite
guess-
of that, actually.
I believe that both bodies, the Town Arts Committee and the Arts Council of Windham County, have merit, and maybe they could work together.
With only the town committee coming to us.
Right.
Keep it kosher.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's taxpayer money, so I'm just trying to
Right.
make it appropriate if it is.
Well, they should talk.
indeed spent.
So,
Okay,
I think once again,
I can't do
we
anything.
need to find an agenda that has room to have, we're gonna need to circle back to this.
Okay.
And I don't know,
And as we go through the formulation of future agendas, you can decide when you think it's appropriate to bring the matter
okay.
back.
And then if members of the board have input on whether or not we wanna invite anybody to that agenda meeting, to that agenda item, like from either organization, I think we should make that clear. There's a lot of nodding going on.
I think that
It's making
they
me
should
nod.
be there.
I
right?
agree. No, I know. So I think when we do that, we'll invite special guests from said committees.
Okay.
The next item is CEVED's and RTM's approval of funding, which is conditioned upon the requirement that future requests for said funding be accompanied by an economic study of Brattleboro. The select board should consider offering BDC advice. Yeah, I agree. So the recommendation here is that the select board consider offering BDCC some advice regarding what kind of information we want to see, which seems like a fair thing to do, and asking people to collect, analyze, and present information. I don't know how best to offer that.
Well,
Is there any recommendations on?
It's traditional that they come before us once a year, correct? To kind of give us a little state of the funding meeting.
That is true. It's usually on the later side of the year.
Yeah, I think. that's
If
not
you'd
gonna
like
be
staff to
sufficient.
have some interaction with the folks at BDCC and bring you,
That's not my,
Consider we
this is
can.
not my dog in the
I
fight.
think it should be
But
done
It's a
publicly.
horrible expression, isn't it?
No, that is not a good expression,
No,
but it's a
but
popular
it's,
one
you know,
that I've
I
heard
can
before.
still use it.
I hear you.
It wasn't my pet project to make that requirement part
Mm-hmm.
of this funding, but I'm certainly open to it. I
Oh,
just want to streamline what
You
our
might-
duties are.
We might want to consider having that in the fall when our budget process commences.
Or late summer, because we'll be pretty finalized by fall. So if we had them in maybe in July, much like we're gonna do with Chamber and DBA, and kind of sit with them and say, you know, what kind of stuff can you give? Because clearly, maybe people aren't feeling like you're giving quite enough, and that gives us time to collect information from ourselves and citizens.
July.
Yeah,
Could we ask the public what they want?
you should.
You know, but I don't mean like, can I go around and talk to people? Like,
You could post it,
Could
or-
we
yeah.
make a survey on the town website? What information would you like
I don't know what the town
BDCC?
website can support.
Well,
As far as-
I think,
Support a link to a Survey Monkey.
Link, yes, link to a survey. Yeah.
I think that we, the select board and town staff, could probably identify financial information that would be useful to us in our work. Perhaps more clearly than Survey Monkey.
Can we put on, for the meeting before, when you're gonna put them on in July, for us to revisit this so that we can be on the same page about how we want to gather information from either the public? That way, it doesn't just sneak up on us and none of us had had a chance to think about anything, if we could have that for our meeting in June.
Sure. So I'm making a note that there would be 2 summer meetings. This would be agendaed for 2 summer meetings. One
A preliminary,
a town discussion and one a town with BDCC.
yes, please. All right. The next one is, should we have Attorney at Town Fisher take a look at email protocol for communication among representative town meeting members, and considering it involves open meeting law? I personally would say, yes,
Yes.
please. It's easy.
That's easy.
That is easy. Always good to have those kind of refreshers, especially since we use electronics so much. Where does that leave us?
Public comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
At this time, we will open this up to general public comments, reminding ourselves that these are already directives which have been memorialized and are not up for debate or change at this time. But if anybody would like to try and ask questions, although the representative body made these directives, so we might not be the right ones to ask questions fully to, but or make comments on these items, please raise your hand. Oscar.
Hi, Oscar Heller. Well, a
Space.
couple different ones I wanted to speak to real quickly, just to pass on some thoughts from town meeting representatives that I've talked to, et cetera.
Awesome.
The $42,000 marketing fund.
Yep.
I think the purpose of that amendment was pretty explicitly to ask for more than just a general sense of ideas. And I know many people, including myself, who would have voted no on the original proposal and voted yes because of the amendment, with the idea that, well, not having the select board micromanage line items,
Right.
seeing a more detailed plan would be more appropriate. And also just to note that it's pretty common for towns to put out, or any organizations to put out an RFP and get detailed budgets and proposals. In the past, that might have been more difficult. I know the DBA and the Chamber said they weren't able to get quotes, but now that the funding has actually been allocated in the budget,
Right.
I can't see how that would be a real obstacle, even if they're going to an outside firm for the plan. So,
Yep.
then regarding the energy funding, I know we're not really going to talk about that now. And I have some stuff to convey from the Energy Committee on that. The only thing I wanted to say is that I know that I think there have been some applications for the old $10,000 energy coordinator position. And just in case anything is happening in the meantime, the Energy Committee recommends unanimously that the town doesn't pursue that position and instead dedicates its attention towards focusing on just the sustainability position, and in general that a preference to make the sustainability position the first priority of that funding, as was sort of the general sense at town meeting, and not to allocate any of it until that has been achieved or not done, or moved off the agenda or something like that.
Great. Okay.
But it sounds like that'll be a much longer conversation some other time.
And it's gonna be April 16th.
That's right.
So I'm not sure what your schedule looks like, or members of the committee, but
I'll probably be here.
because then that'd be awesome. Because then David will be here. So we're not moving it off too far. Just next meeting.
Okay, and then my last note is possible clarification with the arts funds.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure the reason the Arts Committee of Windham County is involved at all is because the select board, maybe there was a misunderstanding, but directed the proposal that they needed a body, a nonprofit, to disperse the funds, that it
Yep.
couldn't be done
That's
by
what
the
it
Arts
is.
Committee. So
Right.
if the town can just hold the money and proposals can come through the committee or just to the select board or whatever,
Yep.
I don't think having the Arts Council of Windham County was an integral part of their proposal, and they'd be just as happy, I think, to not, I don't want to speak for them, but.
Yep.
I think you're right.
And then the other thing about public art versus funding for artists, similar thing, the original proposal did involve funding for artists and supporting artists, and they changed it to just funding public art because they thought it would be, they got the idea that it would be an easier proposal to make, that there would be more appetite for that. So I'm sure the spirit of the proposal that was made, that arts group would welcome what Daniel was talking about, but I don't know if town meeting would have voted for it in that form, or if they only voted for it because it was specifically for funding public art and not for the supporting artists, which never really came up at town meeting.
Yep.
Did that make sense?
It made perfect sense,
Okay.
and actually, my memory is following what you're saying on every point that you just mentioned
Okay.
on that. So,
All right.
Thank
That's
you.
all.
thank you, and thanks for the reminder on the RFP. That's because I remember that coming up too as something that was hard to solidify because we didn't have the money approved. So, that's a good point. Wendy, you've been so quiet all meeting.
What's that?
You said you've been so quiet all meeting. Jeez.
I know. Thank you. So I'm Wendy Levy. I live in West Brattleboro, and I also serve at unrepresentative town meeting. I'm District 1, FYI. So I was at that 13-hour meeting too. And so I have a couple comments to make, and I understand, that the select board will be debating this in the future. But in case I can't be there, I just have a couple of comments and suggestions that I'd like to get into the record, if I could. One of them is a question. Regarding the Dillon State sort of situation, is rent stabilization allowed by state statute? Does anybody know?
We don't know, which is why we'll ask Bob Fisher to give us a legal opinion to tell us what is or isn't allowed. It may be a very short legal opinion.
Yeah,
Under
like no.
The current structure of state law, we may just be prohibited from
Okay,
doing anything there.
Because I was wondering if, sort of along those same lines, if anybody knew if other municipalities in Vermont, like Burlington, I would think,
Right.
maybe even have rent stabilization. Yeah.
And that's going to be part of the inquiry. So
Okay.
when we bring it back for the board, it'll have the legal opinion and any evidence we can find of other communities in the state having done this.
Okay, if it gets that far, I have a suggestion when, when it's analyzed whether rent stabilization would be a good idea for Brattleboro, and if we're able to compare it to other municipalities, I suggest taking a look at things like median income and also median rent, or maybe average. I'm not a mathematician, I always get those two mixed up. But, comparing what we have here in terms of those two figures compared to other, other municipalities, I think would be really great information to help make that decision. I have a few more.
Okay, Wendy.
Regarding the discussion about the Human Services Committee at Representative Town Meeting, I wanted to respond to something that Tim Wessel had said about efficiency. I think about this a lot. I want to caution against holding efficiency as sort of a given, as a goal. I think a lot of times efficiency is held as this sort of lofty thing, sometimes the most important thing. And I have some problems with that. And part of that is that there are some things that take time, and those are really important things. And, you know, that was my first town meeting, or representative town meeting for Brattleboro, and that conversation, I think, was like 3 hours. And it was really long. And my butt was hurting too from sitting in those chairs. But, you know, there's a process. And, you know, even with the committee that's been tasked with doing this, I want to remind everybody, just in the way that these discussions roll out, is that, you know, it's a long process for a reason, because those of us who are there want to take part in it. And sometimes efficiency is used by a power structure to marginalize dissenting voices. So I would just caution that. My final comment. I just want to register that I agree with what Oscar had said about the DBA and chamber proposal. I also would have voted against it, but for the amendment.
Yeah, perfect.
So there we are. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Wendy.
That, of course, was the McLaughlin amendment, so I must say I agree with you.
I'm sorry.
That was my amendment.
The McLaughlin Amendment.
Oh.
I just have to clarify something.
Sure, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify something. I think when I was referring to the efficiency, I was trying to, unless there's another time I was talking about efficiency during the meeting, the RTM. But more recently, today, I was trying to refer to the history of having the Human Services Committee being a function of, it was town meeting that came up with that, for efficiency's sake, for addressing the wide range of needs.
I see.
So not necessarily that I'm saying that we must always go towards efficiency, but that's the history
that's
of
what
the
they-
Human Services Committee itself. That's just trying to clarify that. And I had a couple of very short things. I know you went to the audience, but
Oh, I'm sorry if I didn't see you. Go ahead.
no. I mean, you want to finish up with public
Is there
participation?
any more public participation before I kick it back to
just
Tim,
letting
who I
you know.
apparently skipped?
No, you didn't.
Hello, my name is Ricky from District 2, and I was also at that town or municipal meeting. And I would like to start off by saying that the legal opinions that are paid to the municipal lawyer, I would recommend that we have a team or a committee of lawyers instead of just the interpretation and opinion of just one person, because how people respond to those opinions is really just a lot of opinions. And so we need more than just one interpretation of law. And so also in response to the sales tax being a reason to being like implemented for rent stabilization, for the way that the sales tax was written, it really just disenfranchises people who are already disenfranchised. I would support that BCTV cover all of the committee meetings as well as have an interpreter available. And I would encourage supporting proposals from both the council and the arts committee, because there are so many people independently coming here with proposals that they shouldn't have to be funneled to cooperate with certain committees. That just makes more people more responsible who are already underpaid to do a lot of valuable work. And that the $15,000 that was given is such a really pathetically low amount of money that really is just going to perpetuate the poverty that artists are already undergoing. It's not going to improve their quality of life, and in order to see a real difference, you need to fund much more.
Thank you, Ricky. Mr. Timothy Wessel?
I wanted to just give a shout out to a new RTM member who contacted, I think, all of us.
Oh, thank you.
Louis Zach, who had some good points, and I don't think I'll go into them now. It was more about procedurally what I'm hesitating now because you mentioned efficiency, but what made the RTM less efficient on some matters, and she correctly points out that only direct amendments can be discussed. A lot of members, some of whom might be new, some of whom were not new, sort of speaking outside of the germaneness of a certain motion that added to the length of the meeting. And the point that she makes on a non-debatable point of order. Anyway, I don't think it's necessarily we don't need to go into that here. But I thought this was the time when we might comment on a little bit of the process and the pain and reflect on that a little bit. But what is sort of wrapped into that comment is that I want to remind everybody that what was being discussed for energy efficiency / sustainability under Article 20 was to see that the town raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000, the original motion, to be added to the FY20 budget and to be spent at the Select Board's discretion for energy efficiency and/or sustainability purposes. As we move into this discussion, I think it's really important to understand that that was the original motion, and then it sort of morphed into something else. A really good discussion I think we could have about a sustainability officer or whatever we want to call that possible position. But I do want to say that under that umbrella of energy efficiency and/or sustainability purposes includes a lot of the ongoing work that we do, we as a town and we as town staff do every single year. So I'm advocating in our next discussion that we kind of include how are we going about making good sustainability decisions now and how we might be able to improve on that. Because that's, for me, myself, that's going to be the bar to meet if we were to consider hiring somebody. I want to know that somebody would do a better job than our current staff does, and how would that look? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think the discussion needs to be start out at least as broad as it started in town meeting, because that was the article before us. And my last plug is that, and I know Brandy agrees with this one, at least, that the time for an idea like a sustainability officer is certainly not representative town meeting. It's our budget season. It's early in our budget season. It's exactly when, because it's literally our budget, representative town meeting approves it. But we are the ones that spend hours and hours looking at staff recommendations, staff budgets, and we go through it line by line. That's when to get involved on a major idea, such as a new position as a sustainability officer.
Thank you for that. One thing, I think it's going to be helpful. We're going to keep talking about this. I'm going to is, we're going to have a lot of conversations about what happened from town meeting in the next weeks. And as we move into the fall, really by September, would you say that you're going to start coming to us with drafts of the budget, or is it October?
November 1st is usually when we submit. Staff is working on it in September and October.
So, the time to bring up things throughout the year is really the summer. If you come I'm just going to say this, flying in December with an idea of more money to spend, it's kind of haphazard. It's kind of like, you're like, wait, but what about this? When really, we do this every first and third Tuesday at 6:15. Jan and Peter are always available. I'm available, Tim, to make sure that your items can get on the agenda. And throughout the summer is really the time to be bringing your big ideas and big ticket ideas so that we can see about the possibility of wrapping them into the budget rather than coming in at the last minute. And I think that's going to make things a lot smoother. And I think last year I certainly didn't do a good job of really mentioning that on social media and kind of guiding us through that. And that's something I'm going to try to do better about this year. Okay.
Mayor, I think, Brandy, that was a good point, because a lot of the items that were discussed at length were last-minute items.
Correct.
And what I would suggest is when the budget is published, there's a narrative that goes with it that discusses some of these policy issues, so that town meeting isn't just looking at numbers. And they look at the policies and the other elements that the town is doing. For example, I think if the town knew what the staff was planning with public committees about the sustainability officer, it might have been better understood by representative town meeting and acted on that way, rather than the kind of convoluted way that we came to the $100,000. So I think the budget numbers speak volumes, but only if you know how to interpret it. And so if there were a policy statement or like a state of the town report, that would go a long way for town meeting representatives to understand how town tax dollars are being spent and where.
I like that, Liz. That's a really good point. I think the more we can really be transparent about our processes, the less we're going to have kind of this sense of urgency at the last minute of having to save something that you feel like needs to be saved. Not that there's not times where that's appropriate, and not that excitement is not good, because it clearly is.
There's a question.
Wendy?
Thank you. I'm still Wendy Levy, and I still live in it. So something that I was thinking about as you were having this discussion, and especially what Tim referenced with the Louise Zach letter, is I was wondering if this is an appropriate time to say this, but how can the town better support representative town meeting members, especially new ones, in learning about what's allowed and what's not in terms of Robert's Rules of Order, other kinds of procedure? Because I will tell you, as a first-time person, I got a notice that Marshall Wheelock would give this kind of instruction thing, but when I got to town meeting, I couldn't find it because I didn't know who he was. And also, my district was caucusing at the same time, and my district, which is District 1, we had something like 13, 12, 11 people who weren't on the ballot. So we were all, I guess caucused in, is that the right way to, appointed in? So chances are none of us had any idea what we were doing. Yeah. And we made the best of it. So, I would encourage the select board or the town, whoever gets to have this conversation, to think about better ways to support new RTM members and existing ones, so that possibly, some of the conversation that seemed maybe like superfluous or out of order could be headed off at the pass.
That's a really good point.
Thank you. And I've done trainings in a lot of different milieu, so I'm available if anybody wants to talk to me about ideas. Y'all know how to find me.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good point about not being able to find Marshall and stuff. That's important.
We might want to add that task to the informational session.
Yep. What do you think? It's not a bad time, because I don't like to hear that you couldn't find Marshall, or the idea that a caucus was going on at the same time.
Yeah, that's the first I heard.
As valid as that may be, or as needed as that might have been, that kind of deprives people of the opportunity to attend Marshall's informational had they been able to find him.
Yeah, well, I thought when I heard that he was doing that, I thought it was a great idea, but certainly it sounds like it should be
Thank you,
tweaked so that it better serves the members.
Okay. If the board is, do we need to give you any kind of motions or anything?
Nope, we're good on that one.
So
Thank
if
you.
the board is ready, we still have other business to attend to. That was a wonderful conversation that I am really glad we had. a lot of levels. Okay, so the next things we need to take a look at, which is very exciting, it's our rules of conduct of meetings and hearings. And the date has been changed to April 2nd, 2019 to reflect that we are talking about it today. We talked about it last 1 year ago. All right. So the board is being asked, I'm assuming we've probably already reviewed these. Are there any changes, Peter?
There's just one other change. Otherwise, the document is proposed for you to adopt in the same form as last year. The one other change is on page 4. It appears 2 times because it's addressing the same deadline, which is, it has previously said noon on Wednesday being the deadline for people to submit requests for agenda items. We've changed that to be noon on Tuesday because the agenda setting meetings are going to be held on Tuesday evenings this year.
Yes, that makes sense to have them before the meeting. That's good. That's my fault too, by the way. I had to have it on Tuesdays. Kids.
Otherwise, it's the same as prior years, and we believe it's ready for your approval unless you have concerns about any of the sections of the document.
I don't have concerns. I remember it not being changed at all substantially last year, but the year before, I think we made a little tweaks.
That's correct.
In the behavior of the chair, let's put it.
I don't get to make motions.
Yeah.
No, discouraged. I think the word is discouraged.
Unless we are down to like just a quorum, and then I will.
So there's that, and then also the document was made to more specifically reference Robert's Rules of Order for small boards.
Yes.
Rather than Robert's Rules of Order generally.
I wonder who made that.
No, nobody knows. He carried it around in his back pocket for a year.
Do our new members have any? I'm sorry, I'm running the meeting. Do you guys have any comments?
Yeah, I read it. I'm
trying to move it.
Yeah.
Peter walked me through it. It was pretty straightforward. I think as a former person that used to sit over there and wondered how the sausage got made, it's good for folks in the public to know how to bring items for consideration for the agenda. So just to say that nice and loud and clear, you can email the town manager's office, right? Which will basically end up at Jan's desk with something for the board to consider by a Tuesday, right? And then the chair, which is Brandy, and the vice chair, which is Tim, will take a look at it and think about it, right?
Yes.
That's basically it.
We generally add it to agendas, but we definitely think about it as well. That's it.
Basically a week before.
Right.
Yeah.
Or week before minus a few hours.
And, if the agendas are already crammed packed, then we're going to look at putting it on the next agenda, which can happen.
Yep.
Cool.
Very good. Good summary of that. Okay.
This one does require a motion.
I couldn't find it, but it was right in front of me. So, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the rules for conduct of meetings and hearings for this here select board.
Tim has made a motion to approve the rules for conducts of meetings and hearings. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Next is new to us, right?
It is new. May I summarize?
Please do.
So the next is a policy regarding conflicts of interest and ethical conduct. This is the result of a state law that was passed last year in the last legislative session that requires by July 1st of this year that every municipality adopt a policy regarding conflicts of interest and ethical conduct. The particular one in front of you tonight is the combination of two sources, comes from two sources. The Vermont League of Cities and Towns put together a model conflict of interest policy to help the 251 municipalities around the state to comply with this obligation. And we have borrowed very extensively from that. We thought it was a good standard form that the league put together. And so most of what you see in front of you is that model policy adapted to have Brattleboro's information in it. The one place where we deviated from that is in the definition of conflict of interest, because the league's model policy had a very complex definition that, in addition to having what we thought was the downside of being less clear than what's here, it actually specifically included language that said that the policy addressed real and perceived conflicts. And we were extremely concerned. When I say we, in this case, it's Town Attorney Fisher and Patrick Moreland and I who worked together on this. And we were extremely concerned about the potential that including the terminology perceived conflicts without having any identification of, perceived by whom and why. That left something that's intended to provide good, clear guidance about the boundaries of what's okay and what's not okay in terms of participation and doing the public's business. We thought that broader definition with including the word perceived could lead to confusion and problems. And so what we've done instead is included at Article 4, Paragraph A, the definition that comes directly out of the statute. So in the legislation that was adopted that requires us to have such a policy, the state defined a conflict of interest in exactly the words that are in Paragraph A. We thought that the best way forward for the town would be to take that straightforward, clear definition of a conflict and embed it in the league's model policy, and that's what we're recommending for your approval.
Yeah, good idea. Okay, discussion amongst the board of this policy that seems pretty common sense to have.
Looks good to me.
Conflict of interest policy seems important to me.
I'm happy to be adopting. So.
Great. So, I would entertain a motion for that.
Public comment?
I'm not sure.
Kind of hard.
This might not be the place for that. I mean, we can, but we have to adopt it either way or we can't. And we have to adopt it as a legal document. So you can make a comment, but we wouldn't be able to not adopt it, or we wouldn't be able to function.
Thank you for respecting my right to comment.
Absolutely.
And so I would appreciate that such articles, that there would be copies for us to review present here, as well as for viewers at home, for there to be a projection screen as well, to reference what we're talking about specifically. And that's all.
Thank you, Ricky. Okay, I would entertain a motion for this.
Are they over there?
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Liz.
I make a motion to approve the policy regarding conflict of interest and ethical conduct.
Okay, there is a motion to approve the policy regarding conflicts of interest and ethical conduct. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We are allowed to do the business of the town.
Right.
Yay! Because there's so much of it to do. Okay. The next is another one of those items that's probably boring for the public to watch, but this is our setting of rotation schedule for the board to review and sign warrants. This is not warrants that regard police department stuff, which is what I thought it was. This is what we actually call payroll. It is called warrants. I wish it wasn't.
And accounts payable.
And accounts payable. So please don't think we're signing warrants.
No. It might be fun though.
No.
No.
No, not for me. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rotations throughout the year for turns to sign warrants. And the first one, yes, Tim?
Well, I just have a request because I know with my work schedule,
Yes.
which one in the past 2 years has worked the best for me.
And
So,
what is that?
That's the fourth of 5, the November 11th, 2019 through January 17th, 2020.
Is anybody opposed to Tim signing warrants on November 11th through January 17th?
No.
Okay, mark yourself down.
Thanks.
Okay, so the next open slot that we have is April 1st through June 14th. Anybody feel like that's a good availability?
Should we describe what it entails? for
It
the
entails you
members?
coming to the office. Callista will call you usually. You'll come, Callista sits across from Jan. It's generally on Thursdays, I think, that you will come in, and in a kind of like in and out plastic thing will be warrants to sign, which will look just like paper. And it will have sticky tabs on it that shows where you should sign. And then you leave them in that same plastic bin where you found them. And then take a lollipop from Callista's desk.
And those papers identify all the checks that the town is issuing in that particular week, and they've been produced by the finance department and reviewed, almost always reviewed and signed by me before you come in. Sometimes because of meeting schedules and stuff, the select board member will come in and look at it before I've seen it.
And it's weekly.
It is weekly.
So you're gonna get,
Absolutely.
you need to commit weekly during that time block to come on usually a Thursday when Callista tells you.
All right.
But if you can't make it, you can
You can hit up another board member.
hit up another board member and ask to be
Every
relieved.
other week it includes the payroll warrant as well, and it always, weekly it includes the.
And if you're not here on time for
accounts
that
payable.
signing, you're gonna get a lot of calls from Callista.
Yeah, I can do the first one.
Okay. I can do the second one.
Which one did Tim take?
Tim took November. Daniel can take the first one. You can take whichever other one you would like. I'll go second to last.
I'll do the August one, although there will be 1 week that I'm away.
Okay. So,
Oh, no, I won't be away. I'll be away earlier, so yeah, I can do the third one.
all right, right on. And I feel bad for David because he's not here.
Oh,
But I kind of want to do the June one because I know my availability better. Sorry, David. So that leaves David with the January 20th through March 27.
And this doesn't
2020.
need to be signed, it can just be a sign.
Yes,
Right.
yeah, that's
It's
not-
memorialized in the
doesn't-
minutes. Okay. So we will be good on that. Great. That doesn't require any motions or anything. So we'll move on to committees and boards for us, for the select board to be appointed to. Would anybody like to discuss their favorite committee? Tim?
I don't have to go first.
Daniel?
No, you should go first. Go ahead. I know that you have a favorite committee. So.
I know. I do enjoy serving on the Traffic Safety Committee.
Yeah.
It's very real world and important to our town, so should the board be pleased with my service, I will continue in that regard.
Withholding all
Knock yourself out there,
comment.
Tim.
It also meets very early, just
Yeah.
FYI.
Yeah, you're doing a good job of selling this committee to the future members that might serve on it.
I went to a recent one. It was pretty interesting, actually.
Ah, there we go.
Good stuff happens there.
Very good. All right, so Tim, it sounds like you are on the Traffic Safety Committee, which meets the third Thursday of the month at 8 a.m.
Sharp.
Anybody else
Thank you.
been eyeing a favorite since our binders went out?
What about this rental housing improvement program loan committee that meets as needed? That sounds good to me.
I probably can't serve on it anyways. I feel like there's a conflict in there somewhere. Yeah?
Yes, please.
All
Yeah.
right, Danielle. Did you receive any feedback from David on what he wants to do or what he does do?
He has served on is currently serving on the Small Business Assistance Program Loan
Oh, that's
Committee.
right. Say anything like I never want to do that again?
No, actually, I think he enjoys doing that.
he
That's
does,
been
yeah.
my impression.
Right on.
I'm a little
Liz?
suspicious of meets as needed. I think, Daniel, you should probably throw your hat in somewhere.
I just want, yeah.
So what's left? Is capital grant?
Mhm.
I'll be happy to serve on that.
Wait, David.
Does that need two?
Yep, I'm gonna serve on that. I think I already do serve on that.
capital grant.
which is good because we can both serve on it. Randy, Liz, and then Peter, do you handle the other two that I'm confused about?
We would recommend that you, again, appoint Patrick to be the town's primary representative and me to be the alternate for the Wyndham Solid Waste Management District's Board of Supervisors. And for the Wyndham Regional Commission, that for the last several years has actually been Liz as the Planning Commission Chair, sitting with the town's planning director, first Rod and now Sue. But I think you might have something to say about that. Yes, or do you want me to continue?
No, I do.
Okay.
A member of the Planning Commission has volunteered. His name is Tom
Mazikowski?
Mazikowski. Anyway, he's a new member of the Planning Commission. He's quite studious in his Planning Commission responsibilities, and he's new to town. He has a background in public health and also agriculture, and I think he'd be an excellent candidate because the duties of the Wyndham Regional Commission are wide-ranging but include his interests, and he's a good, thoughtful volunteer.
Okay.
I met him. He's a good guy.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Liz.
he's also a town meeting rep.
Nice. Well, it looks like.
I think it'd be appropriate for you to
Do it all
actually
at
do this
once.
by a motion. So if you'd like, I can read the list and then somebody can say so moved.
That sounds great.
Does that work for you?
Let's do
And so
that.
did we
Okay.
decide on the two members for Wyndham Regional Commission?
Yes, Tom Mazikowski and Sue Fillion.
Okay.
So the total list is Capital Grant Review Board, Liz McLaughlin and Brandy Starr. The Rental Housing Improvement Program Loan Committee, Daniel Quip. The Small Business Assistance Program Loan Committee, David Scholes. The Traffic Safety Committee, Tim Wessel. The Wyndham Regional Commission, Tom Mazikowski and Sue Fillion. And the Wyndham Solid Waste Management District Board of Supervisors, Patrick Moreland as representative and Peter Elwell as alternate.
All right.
So moved with that slate of candidates.
All those in favor?
Appointments.
We have a.
Aye.
Yeah, aye.
Aye.
Honestly. Well done.
All right.
Okay, so now we move to committee appointments that are for town committees that the select board is not serving on. So these are the interviews that we conducted at 5:15 this evening. Okay, so I believe how we usually do this is somebody. Peter, how do we usually do this?
So in accordance with your procedures in your order, the document regarding the rules of order that you approved earlier this evening, you first take nominations for
okay.
the particular seats, and then when you're done with the nominations, people can vote as many times as they choose to vote.
Okay, and we vote per
And you
seat.
keep going until there's a nominated individual that has been selected to serve on a particular committee.
Great. Okay, so we're gonna vote per committee until somebody is on that committee.
Yes, as you
It's,
see fit regarding the particular vacancies that are in front of you on that evening.
Liz? Questions are allowed.
Well, I just don't, we had earlier specified that a person should be involved in only one committee.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more vacancies.
Right.
So that's what's confusing me.
So-
Will there be spots remaining vacant?
There will be spots remaining vacant. There always are spots
Yeah.
remaining vacant at the end of this kind of a process. For instance, right this evening you have the 10 vacancies currently on the Agricultural Advisory Board before you, and one candidate for that board, and that one candidate is the one that you've had discussions among yourselves and with the candidate about the fact that individuals are usually appointed to just one board, or one committee. So, given that, I think you wouldn't make a nomination for committees where you don't intend to actually make an appointment this evening.
Okay.
You would,
Well, that helps me.
yeah. You
Understand.
nominate where you actually intend to take an action.
We are always accepting more applications
Yes.
for things like the Agricultural Advisory Board.
And I see some people in the room, maybe they've come to say, hey, I want to be on that. Or maybe not.
What's wrong, Wendy? Okay.
Giving it much thought.
So, who wants to kick it off with number one?
Why are you looking at me?
Give me some
I
framework
don't know,
for the
because I
language.
was like, you would say,
I nominate
Okay.
each person
All right,
for
very good.
the.
Okay, I'm going to kick it off. I nominate Ricky Rosati for the ADA Advisory Committee.
okay, we have a nomination for Ricky Rosati for the ADA Advisory Committee. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
All right.
That was unanimous,
4-0.
4-0. Congratulations, Ricky.
And when does this committee meet?
Great question.
They're going to meet this Friday
Yeah.
at 9 o'clock in the morning. They normally meet the second Friday of every month at
And do
9
they
o'clock in
meet
the morning
here?
at the Hannah Cosman Room. Yes.
Great. So we're going to skip the Agriculture Advisory Board, once again saying we're always accepting applications. Next is, who wants to go next?
I would like to nominate Joanna Marie Zambella for the Arts Committee.
Excellent. We have a nomination for Joanna Marie Zambella for the Arts Committee. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
No opposed? No? Okay. Thank you for your application, Joanna, and congratulations for being on the Arts Committee. Okay. Next, we have, I guess it's my turn because we're going down the turn. So, Energy Committee. I will nominate Carol Levin for a one-year term on the Energy Committee. All those in favor, please say furrowed brow.
Oh, well, no, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm confused about the process again.
Carol's probably not feeling great right now if she's watching.
No, but I thought you were supposed to get all nominations out there. Don't we have Harmeet Singh who's also?
No,
he
They
declined.
withdrew from the
Withdrew.
Oh, it's
consideration.
not on my sheet,
I'm sorry, I found it, I forgot to tell you yet. That's been withdrawn.
My mistake, maybe I should have seen it.
Okay, so, sorry,
Now I feel
that's my
better about
fault.
that.
So voting on Carol Levin for the Energy Committee, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Carol, thanks for coming in earlier. Energy Coordinator to be determined. Next is Senior.
I nominate Priscilla Pam Sweeney for the Senior Solutions Advisory Council.
Great, we have a nomination of Priscilla, goes by Pam Sweeney, for the Senior Solutions Advisory Council. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Motion carries. Please do take a look at the town website to find applications if you'd like to apply for participation on a town committee. It's great to be a rep, but it's also really great when you can round that out with serving on a town committee. And thank you to Ricky, Joanna, Carol, and Pam for stepping up to the plate. Okay. That's it. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, BCTV.
It's 9 hours.
I got a squeaky chair.
You got a squeaky
I'd like
chair.
somebody to take a look at it before the next meeting.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Yeah.